So, Sun Ra, my first question is one more or less posed by Pat Patrick, which is, he talked about a day, perhaps as long as 37 years ago, when the Sun Ra Orchestra was three pieces: Robert Barry's drums, Pat Patrick's baritone saxophone, and your own keyboard work, compositions, the addition of the four voices with your choral parts, your lyrics with the vocal group, and then the meeting of these incredible individuals who are still core members of your orchestra, the Marshall Allens, the John Gilmores. And what I'd like to ask, a musical question first, is as you got new individuals and therefore new pieces, how did it change your writing, the music that you wanted to write?
Well, I just write what I feel. It's always the same. I'm keeping up with the cosmos and with the future, alter future, all kind of things. So I can put messages over into music from all kind of places. I'm in contact with a lot of different places and beings, and I communicate with them, and I can put down what they're saying or what they're going to say. It's all over into something that's cosmos psychic, you might say.
Well, your psyche has reached the cosmos musically in all the different formats of the bands. But the point, the interest here from your very own ensemble members was, did you ever want to write for, when you had a trio, did you want more pieces? Did you want to write for a larger ensemble? And do you continue to write for the small group within the band as you continue to make music today?
Well, the world was never supposed to hear this music, you see. It wasn't designed for that. It was really to not be part of the world, and it was going another direction, because I felt that everybody who innovated on this planet, they never was accepted, whether they was classical composed or otherwise. So I didn't want to go through that. I had something worthwhile. I didn't need to have to fight to get people to listen to it. They needed me. I didn't need them. So therefore, I just went the way that anybody else wise would go. You just disconnect yourself from society and from everything, and you develop yourself spiritually. And that's what I was doing, not in a righteous manner, just advancing myself spiritually. Like some people develop their minds, I developed my spirit. I went another direction. And therefore I went places, I saw things, I heard things that possibly nobody in human form ever heard before. And I recorded it because it was too much to write. And music is a universal language, so I recorded it so I remember some of it when I played it back. Because it's like in code, you see, and by me listening back to it, I can recall something that I may have forgotten about.
Tell me, you continue to write music physically on music paper? It isn't all just recorded. Is that not true?
That's right. I always sketch some things down. I used to write all of it down, but I got so many things that I don't do that now. It's shorthanded, you might say, another way of writing.
When did the idea come to you, and how did you mechanically go about recording your music as a means of preserving composition? When did you first get into recording your own music, and how did you do it?
I was supervised by superior beings. They always fixed it up for me to do that because I wasn't interested in it, and they were, for some reason. Although they don't seem to show much interest in humanity surviving, they still wanted this music to be recorded. So I did it at their behest and not at mine.
We're talking with Sun Ra, who at all our behests has added so much wonderful music for all Cosmo listening to continue. And we have been listening to that very same music, recorded and as played off the paper into microphones and recorded over the years. Virtually all of Sun Ra's known recordings have been played over the last few days, and here, not yet in the home stretch of our Sun Ra Festival, 116 hours of radioactivity of his music. It won't end until Tuesday morning. But this weekend is being extended by the arrival of Sun Ra, who is in the studio and is talking with us about his career, his music. And, the music has helped you travel to these places you speak of. Are there compositions or are there musical performances that stand out in your memory as you experience it, where what you feel, which is the most essential jazz quality, putting across feeling, was expressed to the fullest limits? Like, is there a work that you might isolate, or a record, or a performance where what you feel inside, what you've been made to do, has happened?
Well, I got a lot of things. I got a piece called A Quiet Place in the Universe, which would really be nice for this planet to hear, because it would eliminate stress, because they would have at least a moment, a second or something, to feel somewhere that's a quiet place in the universe. And that's a nice song. It could really go into classical repertoire. I got a lot of things that could fit right in, but I wasn't trying to seek recognition or anything like that. I was trying to, in a sense, bypass this planet. It's very difficult to be part of it.
Huh.
So therefore, I didn't want to be part of it. I felt that I'd win my greatest victory by not wanting to be a part of this planet. And judging from what's happening here, I was right.
We're talking with Sun Ra. This is the Sun Ra Festival on WKCR FM, New York, 89.9 on the dial. You're hearing this live. Here's another question from many musicians. You were speaking just a moment ago with Mitch Coleman and Charlie Blass about the phone calls have come in. The musicians, and I fielded some of these questions myself, we're curious about your opinion of your keyboard playing. For instance, in the last 4 hours, Prelude in C-sharp minor has been played. Sophisticated Lady has been played. All of your Spaceways music has been played, and your most recent piano elements of your own work, Reflection in Blue, the most latest recording. Do you feel comfortable, more comfortable, let's say, in a stride thing, in a blues stride? Do you feel the same sort of power you have in your musical presentations in your own instrumental capabilities? How do you evaluate yourself as a pianist, as a keyboard player?
Well, actually, I haven't really expressed myself on the piano the way I can, because, as I said, in the early days in Chicago, I was doing that, and some pianists stole some of my stuff and became millionaires. So then I decided to do the organ and electronic things because of that fact. And the piano players were asleep to what I'm doing, but now they're waking up, because I get a lot of letters and they want some piano records. And piano players were the last ones to wake up.
How do you think you've influenced the piano players of today? In what way? In the electronics and in the voicings? In what way? Where are you hipping them?
Well, they just began to listen. They were listening to everybody else but me. And they begin to listen now. I got a letter from a pianist. He said, intricate, intriguing piano. He wanted albums. He wanted maybe some writings or things like that.
Well, 40 years ago, in fact, more than 40 years ago, a major pianist of all time was enthusiastic about your piano playing. He was a man by the name of Fletcher Henderson.
Well, that's true. He's one of the few people that really stopped playing this band, which the band didn't like the way I was playing, but Fletcher did. I had to finally tell them that Fletcher plays piano. He hired me. And if a pianist recognizes another, then you should just shut up. But they kept on. Finally, I gave my notice. So I left. Well, I gave my notice, and then the Fletcher didn't say anything. He didn't say he accepted. He didn't say he didn't. And the next night they played, I came, and he didn't have a piano player. He said if I didn't play, they just wouldn't have a piano player. So he was up there directing, and they realized he meant it, and they told me to come back on the stage. So my notice was over.
That was a beautiful
After that, they didn't bother me, because they realized Fletcher meant it.
You know, this story, of course, and it's an equally important one in the annals of jazz. You just heard Sun Ra talk and document the Fletcher Henderson standing up to the band for the man. And in fact, Henderson had hired Lester Young out of Kansas City. Fletcher Henderson's the greatest talent scout we've had. He went to New Orleans. He wanted to hire one cat as Louis Armstrong. He went to Kansas City, wanted to hire one cat. Who did he hire? Lester Young. And he went to Chicago in the tail end of his big band career and turned over his own instrument, the piano, to Les Sun Ra, who you hear telling the story. When Lester was in the band, the other members of the band complained, and Fletcher, when Lester gave his notice, he let Lester go. But he learned his lesson, and he kept Sun Ra in 1947, and I'm glad he did.
Well, I'm glad he did, too, because he really was a gentleman, and he had a sense of humor. Well, he would play humoresque. Sometime I'd get up from the piano. He would play that on the show, and he'd play Steel and Apples. That's all he played. we won them night. But one night, he just kicked off stealing apples, and he didn't come to the piano. The band was looking, but see, he had everything written. He had the bass parts written. He had the drum parts written. Everything's meticulous, and so I didn't ask any questions. I always do things precision way, and even though I wasn't going to play the song, I had it right before me when he called it, and therefore I played it because it was written exactly the way he played it. So I played it just like him. So he just smiled, but I don't know whether he forgot to come to the piano or whether he did it deliberately because he didn't comment on that.
He clearly encouraged you, though.
Yeah.
Before us is Sun Ra. Tell me, did you really say on television that they asked you who you admired and you named Fletcher Henderson and the Devil? Did that really happen, or is that a misquote?
I said Lucifer because Lucifer's a musician, you know.
Uh-huh. You said Lucifer and Fletcher Henderson or Lucifer and the Devil.
Well, Lucifer is a musician. It didn't say that the devil was the leader of the angels choir. It said Lucifer is, and it doesn't say he ever got fired from that position. So in my book, he's still the leader of the angels choir. He didn't lose that. So then I admire a master musician. In fact, I'm sure I learned quite a bit from him.
From Lucifer.
From Lucifer.
And from Fletcher Henderson.
He's a top musician, and therefore I keep on moving forward on advanced stages. And when you do that in the human race of mankind, you should rise above them. When you do, you come up against superior beings. And they have to judge whether you are pure in heart. If you're pure in heart, you don't have to worry about the devil. You don't have to worry about Satan. You don't have to worry about Lucifer. You don't even have to worry about God if you're pure in heart. But if you aren't, you're in trouble from all four of them.
All right. Well, we're trying to be pure in our hearts about our love for your music, and I tend that you have gathered that Fletcher Henderson was pure in heart. That is why you included him in a list of people you have reflected on favorably.
Of course he was. I didn't see him with any vices or anything like that. The only thing they could say about him was that he liked to play the horses all the time. They talked about that. But I mean, it's just like playing golf, I suppose. It's just recreation.
We have an interview going on with Sun Ra here on the Sun Ra Festival, WKCR FM, New York, 89.9 on the dial. This is happening live, and there's a lot of energy in the room. I think someone brought it here with him. The energy of your music is something that the musicians, again, and they have stacked up the questions for you, so I'm sort of a vocal piece for them to express these things. When you wrote, one of the things that impressed Pat Patrick 37 years ago, impresses Pat Patrick now in 1987, are the variety in the parts, and that in the strong indication of what you wanted for the drums or the percussion to do. The percussion, you wrote drum parts even when there was a trio, is that correct?
Everything has to be written in harmony, the melody, the rhythm. I'm different from most writers. They might write the melodies and the harmony, but they leave it to the drummers or the bass player, but I have to have everything tailor-made. This way it's just a natural gift to have everything, you might say, perfect in an imperfect world. And I tailor-make the music according to the individual. That means if somebody else gets in my band, I've written it for somebody else, they won't be able to play it, don't care how great they are. You take like Fletcher Henderson's band. The band they was always telling me, why don't you bring out some arrangements? Fletcher asked me about it one night. I said, but they can't play in my arrangements. And they laughed me to scorn. They told me they played Fletcher Henderson's arrangement, Solomon, everybody. It's ridiculous for me to say. They said, we professional musicians, we can read anything, sight read anything. So Fletcher called a special rehearsal the next day in Chicago. And it was 2 o'clock, he said rehearsal. At 4 o'clock, Fletcher said, he's right, you can't play it. And it's written right too. And the 2 songs was Deal with Southland and I Should Care. It wasn't fast, but the syncopation was different. I write different in syncopated things. Like Coleman Hawkins, I played with him and Star Smith, and he liked what I was doing. So then one night he asked me to write down something I was playing. So I wrote it down for him. And years later, in New York City, Village Gate, the Baroness, Nika Rothschild, I don't know if she believed it, because she got in the dressing room and she asked Coleman Hawkins, "Do you remember him?" And Coleman Hawkins said, "Of course I do. He's the only person that ever wrote any music that I can't play." He said, "I still got that song. It's written right. I can't play it, and I don't know why."
Would you say one of the whys is because of your meticulous nature and somewhat innovative being in percussion parts, that your music has a rhythmic content and a specific percussion accent that makes it Sun Ra music, makes it the music of the cosmos, which is not present in a great deal of the orchestrations in jazz that you came upon as you were coming up?
But it came from somewhere else. I was taught by somebody else, superior beings. A lot of them, I was taught by them.
But the drum part is a key part in why your music's different.
Of course, an incident happened here in New York City. A drummer that was playing with Mayor Lou Williams, he wanted to play with us, and I was staying on 3rd Street then. He came, he rehearsed with us every day. He was very frustrated. He couldn't get what I was talking about, although he'd be playing the rhythms, but something else he knew that he didn't have. So one day he came to me and told me that he had a vision. He was walking up in heaven from clouds and things, and he heard there was a door up there, and behind this door was all kind of rhythms, all kind of drummers, and a voice told him, "Open the door, and you know what Sun Ra is talking about." But he said he was afraid. So then he left us. I saw him one day driving his taxi. He said, "I should have opened the door."
On the other side of those doors, he said there were many drummers and
sounds that they'd see. I'm talking about sound. I took a drummer to a nice drummer here in New York. I took him to Europe with me. In Berlin, all at once, he started screaming, I can't get the sound." And he beat his head on the drums. People thought it was part of the act. He said, "I can't get that sound." But he was playing, but certain sound, he realized I did was sound. And he was spiritual enough, psychic enough to know that he was playing and wasn't playing at the same time. So he left us too. So some people come in this band and then they have to leave because something happens, something I can't explain. I had another drummer with me, and he was from Haiti, so I felt that a drummer from Haiti could really catch the rhythms, but it ended up where he didn't eat, he didn't sleep, he didn't talk to nobody. He just went out somewhere, and I said maybe he's in voodoo, something. People came and got him. He still was out of it. But when he was in the house and he wouldn't talk to anybody, and I told the fellas in the band, don't care what I do to him, don't care what I said to him, don't say anything. I'm going to make him talk. So he's laying down on the sofa. So I went and I sit on his chest. And then he started moaning. And I said, did you hear something? And they said, we didn't hear about it. I said, I know I heard something, like a person. They said, we didn't hear anything. And finally he spoke. He said, "Sonny, you too heavy to sit on my chest." And after that, he talked, but that's what happened. He said, so get up. And after that, he talked. But he didn't make it either. He went out. So I had to send him to Washington, D.C. So take him to his sister and get a note that you delivered him, because I don't want the problems. Another drummer was playing with us, Red Bank. And he's a school teacher. He's really a good drummer. Something he couldn't get. So one night he just got out there and started walking in the rain. I had to tell his wife to come and get him. So he left us. So it's not easy to play in this band because there's certain things you have to have. You have to belong. You have to be rated by superior beings as suitable. And if you're not rated, I'll be telling everybody, it's not my band, it's the Creator's band. And you have to, if they're not suitable for the future, they won't fit for the present, and therefore they can't play. So it's my band. It'll be a lot of people in this band, but it's not my band. It's somebody else's. And this music is a language, and I have held back on a lot of things because people won't like it. But it's a possibility that if they could see what I'm talking about, in a sense, I'd be in trouble because I'd have 5 billion people just asking me questions. That's what I told them in England. I said, they said, well, why haven't we heard more about you? And I said, well, I've been playing a low profile. I said, why? I said, because I've been telling people I'm the ambassador of the creator of this planet. They might believe it. And then I said, can the airport accommodate 5 billion people to come to see me if they will believe it? They said, I see what you mean.
I see some of what you've seen. I can say that Haitian drummer speaks for many of us here at the station, WKCR FM New York, because the presence of Sun Ra is a heavy one. And we're really being influenced by that presence. One of the things that we're talking, by the way, I'm Phil Schaap, with us, the Sun Ra. The interview is in progress. It's live. It's clearly a very, very important day in our trying to get with the better music of the cosmos. This is our way to try to be better listeners for that new sounds and for these sounds. One thing that's clear with these drummers that you've gone through over the years is that the drum part and the rhythm and the sounds, both the written part and the sound as it should be hit, as it's executed, has been a complex issue in your music. And you progressively have had others adding to the percussion. It starts slowly. You're one of the key ones. Then there's more and more and more until almost everyone is helping with the percussion thing. How can you in any way enlighten us on how you made those changes and what stages and what you were trying to get, what specifically you were trying to get by having so many individuals joining in the percussion?
Well, in Africa, they used to speak with drums. Probably other nations did it too. And so you have to start, the drums are talking too. So if they're talking one thing and the horns are talking another, which is happening with quite a lot of bands, then you have confusion. People might hear it, but sooner or later that spirits will discard it because of the confusion, you see. And so therefore, the drum parts have to fit in with the melody, definitely. If I don't have any harmony, the drum parts have to fit in. They have to coordinate with each other. And then the harmony got to fit in too, because the melody can be all right. The harmony might have to be real odd and strange and totally different from the melody. It might have to be if that's the message. So then if the harmony is just according to what they're teaching in schools and things, then, it wouldn't be any other message than what they've been hearing all along. But when the harmonies move direction which they seem they're not supposed to move and still fit, you got another message from another realm, from somebody else. Superior beings would definitely speak in other harmonic ways than the earth way, because they're talking to something different, and you got to have chord against chord, melody against melody, and rhythm against rhythm. When you got that, you're expressing something else.
I'd like to ask one last question on this drum part business and relate it to jazz and perhaps to an individual you're aware of. Recently, Eddie Durham of the original Count Basie Orchestra passed away, I'm sad to say. And trying to latch on to what made his music swing off the paper. We're talking now maybe not in a complete being of music, but in a jazz music kind of concept. One of the things that I feel was a secret of the success of Eddie Durham's music was that he concentrated so hard on what the percussion was doing while the music is going by, that he did the same thing in the very same way you just enunciated, which is that he has the rhythm part written to go with the melody and the harmony rather than just leave it to the rhythm section and the percussionist, the drummer, and that this was something of the success of his music. Do you think that because this is this jazz part of your music, jazz music, is such a rhythmically dominated force musically, that it is essential to direct the rhythm if you're going to be a true composer, and that's what you have done and perhaps a few others such as Mr. Durham did?
Well, you have to talk baby talk. You know, you have to do like this. Because let's say "Ubat Shiva" if you want to express it like that, and they'll play it. But if you're not able to talk the baby talk and tell them that goes like this, "Ubat Shiva" and like that, they'll play it. So then he had to have a code when he said, "I want this played like this," and he'd hum it like that. He'd bend words and things, and they'd play it like that. Because if this go by the written thing, a musician would know how to bend a note unless you tell him, and you tell him better with the baby talk since they're used to it.
So you're directing the little ones and the medium ones and on up in the way to play the rhythm, telling them how to do it.
You have to, yes, you have to hum it, and they will play it. But otherwise, they'll play the notes, and then that's all right.
Playing the notes isn't enough. You got to swing it.
You got to bend notes a certain way, and then you got to rest just the right number of microseconds, not too long, not too short, and that's very meticulous, you know. A composer might write something down there, put an eighth rest down there, but maybe it's supposed to be a 16th rest, 0.19 or something. This over into fractional music, which I do quite often, fractional rhythms and fractional music, and then like I be telling the drummers, well now, I want you to do 4 time 0.2. And I'm over to that now, and that's meticulous, you know. They're not aware of the fractional elements of music, but I'm dealing with fractions. Fractions in rhythm, fractions in harmony, fractions in melody. I'm moving to fractional music now, which that means it's quite difficult for a musician to deal with that unless they activate their spirit. And their spirit could do it, and I'm not talking about righteousness, I'm talking about something else. That spirit doesn't count anything, you know. It deals in this timelessness, and so it doesn't make any difference. But by 4 time, it will play the way it's supposed to be. Because I write with my spirit, you see. And musicians can play. Sometimes I tell them, I can't hear you. They play louder. I said, I still can't hear you because my spirit can't hear you. Now, when my spirit hears them, then it's all right. But they could play that very best, and it wouldn't be right because my spirit would say no. Now, if I deal with my ears, well, I say, all right. When you start dealing with spirit things like I am, then you rise up above religion and all philosophies and everything else man is talking about. That makes it quite difficult to get to a person, you know, because they're not used to that. They're used to measuring everything. I'm dealing with the spirit, and it's not measurable. That's why I talk about immeasurable equations. It's quite a problem, particularly in America, that is more materialistic than any country in the world, I suppose, because most of the people who came here to make money. So that's why I haven't really been successful here, because the materialists are so busy making money, they can't hear me and they can't see me. That's why I go to other countries that don't have too much money and trying to do something on a social way for everybody, they can hear me.
You know, that
even though they may be atheists, they can hear me better than the righteous can, because the righteous are trying to go to heaven anyway. They're trying to do that. I'm really planning to sue the righteous for loving Jesus more than they love me.
We're talking with Sun Ra. This is the Sun Ra Festival, and you're mentioning of America, and if we might extend it to the earthbound audiences that you perform for. This brings up the question whether that spirit can be conveyed in a different way. You've written out a great deal of your music. You've recorded as documentation both for your own listening playback and for us to listen to and learn about and feel that spirit, the music. If perchance you were to be called to another space in cosmos where we would not be able to be in touch with you because we're mere earthlings, could your music be performed from that paper, from the recordings we know about, from the recordings you've made for yourself, by earth musicians without your direction?
It's forbidden. I'm really dealing with forbidden music for humans. They got that thing. They play what they know. They play what they feel. This is something alien to them, and I know it. But it has possibility and a potential for them to really gain immortality. without being righteous, without ever having done anything that's worthwhile. It's not like that. It's something else.
Do you have any interest in other jazz bands or other bands, orchestral organizations on earth playing your compositions?
There's some of my NRBQ playing,
I know.
And some more too. They've written me about it. It's all right. They can play it that way. Neil like me, but I got so many things. After all, I got about 50 years of recorded music and rehearsals, and then you add that up to how many hours that is and how many days of rehearsing every day, 6 hours, at least composing 7 compositions at every rehearsal. So I got a storehouse of treasures, and I can just lay back and listen. That's what I do most of the time now, listen to these treasures. When really the world should be hearing it, but then they don't have no way for me to present it to them, you know. I'm not a minister or anything. I'm not a philosopher and all these things, and a statesman, and I'm not a politician. So you see, this planet only deals with that. Politicians, religionists, and things like that, and school teachers. I'm not any of those things. It's only one of me, and that makes it, and it will not be another. You see, I'm just here. I'm passing through, you might say. Often this planet is something that's so valuable that all that money and all that gold and silver and everything they know, they can put that in the wastebasket compared to what I have to tell them. But as I said, it's about churches and governments and schools and things like that, and sex and all that. And so naturally, they might miss what I'm talking about.
Are there specific political lessons in your music for Earthlings?
Well, I mean, a matter of discipline rather than freedom, a matter of precision rather than mistakes, denying the fact of what they're saying that to err is human, feeling that is not a good thing to say or to build a principle on to allow humans to make errors, because there is, if they make an error, they should be able to know it and correct it before something bad happens. But since they're not being taught that, well, you know, they do make errors, and that's when planes fall and different things happen because of the errors. If they were psychic enough, they would know when a person is a hijacker whatsoever. They would know what they're going to do before they did it, and they tell them if they were psychic enough. But they aren't psychic, and they make a lot of mistakes sometimes and incarcerate innocent people. And that's not good, you know, to do that, because the cosmos will not allow a people to progress if they harm, judge wrong concerning one innocent person. It can hold a planet back and hold a nation back and make a government fall to really misjudge one innocent person, because there is a creator, and he judges by that. A nation is judged by how well do they treat the innocent. And that's when America's in danger now, because the fact it's so busy making money, it's not, they go out looking for dope addicts and all those kind of people. But what they should look for, they should have a police department looking for the innocent and the ones who are gifted by the Creator, and take care of them. And don't care how bad they are, it would be overlooked because they did exactly what the Creator wanted them to do. But they got all these jails and all these courts and everything to go out looking for people who are doing wrong. And they don't have no police folks to go out and look for people who are doing right or want to do right. But they only get them when they've done something wrong. Then they go and they have all these research centers for the dope addicts and the this and that and the other. They do that then, but then that's one-sided people. If you only got organizations set up to get people who are doing wrong and help them to rehabilitate themselves and do nothing for those who are not doing wrong and trying to help, and they need to put that into order. Because I said that you can't have justice. If you got a court that's condemning the guilty, you must have right across the street another courthouse with judges judging the innocent and those who are trying to do right and help them. You feed them and get them somewhere to stay and all that. But then a man has never done that. He be busy out getting the ones who are doing wrong and the ones who are sick and the ones who are dead and dying, and spend millions of dollars for that. and nothing for innocence. And children who are really gifted, they put them over there in public schools with some people who might kill them, talking about equality, and that's wrong because nature is strange. It sends gifts to all kind of people, all kind of races, and a nation should look for those first before they look for the criminals. Look for those children who have something to offer in the future, because some of them do have something to offer. Some of them don't. So talking about equality, the Creator gets rid of that whenever it's time he sends somebody gifted. He's done away with the idea of man's democracy. And every now and then he sends some giants. They can be in science. They can be in music, entertainment. He don't send one, just one, and never be another one like that, you see. And that's what people have to wake up to, that there's no equality with the Creator. He sends one somebody when a nation needs. It might be a bad man, you know, like a nation might be put together by somebody that the world hates. But he'll do his job, you know, because he's supposed to get that nation together. Right. It's like I had one drummer. He left the band. He left the band because he said, well, today you said you're wicked and evil. And I've never been with a leader who says he's wicked and evil. And I said, well, have I ever done you wrong? No. Have I ever said anything to you wrong? No. I said, what you worried about? He said, I'm worried because you said you're wicked and evil. I said, well, if you got a shepherd leading some sheep and he denies the wolf, one of the sheep, the wolves would all get together and say what an evil shepherd he is. But if he saved all his sheep, the sheep would say he's a good shepherd. I said, if I'm just going to say nice things to you and say I'm good and all that, and someone comes to attack you, if I attack them back, then, well, that would make me evil to them. So I'm not going to restrict myself just to be good and righteous, when in order to survive, I have to do something for those who are my friends.
You've been hearing a lot of the preferences of cosmo neutrality, as you refer to it so often, and you're hearing it live on the Festival of the Man Who Is From the Cosmos, the musician, the personage from the Cosmos, by Sun Ra, here on the Sun Ra Festival on WKCR FM New York, 89.9 on the dial. In here in Master Control are a lot of spellbound people. I am one of them. My name is Phil Schaap, and I'd like to ask Sun Ra two questions, both perhaps getting a little bit onto a musical thing. You mentioned about the passing through nature, and that it is, to a certain extent, your music is not to be played outside of your direction, but to a certain extent, other bands' attempts at playing it are okay. You mentioned NRQB, among others, but there are others who play Sun Ra's music. And when you were saying that, you say, well, you were passing through, and that you may be gone, but when you first started passing through, on the first end of this journey, you met people who, or things, or schools, or things that enhanced your musical skills. One key force, of course, is coming from the Creator. It's saying, it's leading you to find the elements to put together a greater whole, which you've done. Could you be, if you could, specific about how you came to be a musician, how you gained the skills to play music that we can recognize, we on Earth can recognize as music?
Well, the music was designed just for one.
But before you started playing the music, what sort of training did you get?
Well, it was really my way of appreciation for the Creator. The Creator has everything, but I wanted to do something that the Creator didn't have.
Were you totally self-taught?
And that's when the music started. I played it for the Creator. Every day I composed something for the Creator.
Even when you were young?
When I first started, 11 years old, around that, that's what I was playing. I wouldn't even play for my family. I played just for the Creator. I didn't play nothing for them. Now and then maybe they might bring a church song for me to play. I'd play that. But otherwise, I did not intend to play for the public. I played just for the Creator. That's when I got a lot of works for what I call music from the private library of God, because that's exactly what it is. It was made, and then it seemed like the Creator wanted some people to hear what I was doing. In Chicago, I first organized this band for to rehearse 10 years without anybody hearing it, without the public hearing it, and they could play with other groups, and but otherwise it was not supposed to be out to the general public. And then a dancer, and then it got so A lot of folks was at the rehearsal. I couldn't keep them out. And a dancer named Johnny McAfee, I think his name, he came one day rehearsal. He said, we was playing Old Man River. And he said, don't play that anymore. I said, why? He said, because it's so beautiful, they'll steal it. Don't play it. So then he said, now Miles is playing around the corner at Birdland. You should be there. I'm going around there and get this band a job. It shouldn't be just rehearsing. So I really didn't want that. It was interfering with my plans. But he went around there, and I played the furthest out things I could to not get the job. So then the owner of the place named Cadillac Bob, he said, play that again. I played again, and he said the band is hired. So then that frustrated my plans. And then it went on, and he told me, as we stayed there maybe about 2 years, one night he told me, I've had all kind of musicians in here, top musicians. You're the only gentleman musician I ever met. I feel about you like I would a brother. He told me that. So you see, that again, that's another story, and I saw him in Chicago. Well, he was telling me, now you're playing the space thing and all like that. Maybe one day it would happen, folks to go to the moon and all that. But my son will be grown and have grandchildren before then. So then they sent us Sputnik, and I called him and I said, "How your grandchildren?"
Sun Ra, I have a question here from Charles Davis, one that he came to in a point in the interview on Thursday, and then he said, "You better ask Sonny." So we're asking now, could you describe from scratch one of your rehearsals, one of the ones in Chicago?
Well, you know what scratch is, don't you?
Well, that's probably how you could rent the hall.
That's one of the devil's names, though, Scratch. You start from scratch. well, the rehearsals, I tell him make everything. You take like John, when I first met him in Chicago, he had to come to the house every day by himself for rehearsal. And when Marshall got in the band, he had to do the same thing. And Victor Sprouse.
And what would you
Charles
do?
Davis. Well, I just rehearsed with them. I was busy getting a psychic picture of that spirit, and I knew what to write for them. But it would sound better doing that than anybody in the world. And that's the way it is. I tell them make music according to the person's spirit, and maybe sometime according to their potential. If they're not exactly the way they should be, I have to write according to their potential and bring them up to the image of their potential. So, see, it goes another way. And when I do that, it doesn't take too long. The instant I sketch the image of the potential, they'll play the potential. Even if it's 50 years from now, they'll play that with me, but not with anybody else.
Well, how did you instruct them? What's a specific?
I just play. So let's play this. And then they play it, try to play it. Maybe astounding. I said, let's play this. I'm trying to see what they can do with it. And I keep on doing that. And one day I hear something that said, yes, they'd do better in this direction, rhythmically speaking. Sometimes it's hard for musicians to play with me because sometimes I play in between the cracks. And sometimes I might play a chord, like for instance, I told a violin player, I said, don't stand behind me and look at my hands when I'm playing. You might get messed up doing that. So, of course, he did it. And then he had to quit because he'd see my hands playing one chord and another would come out, or seem to come out, and he couldn't understand that. So he had to leave, too, from California. But that's what Coleman Hawkes would be doing when I was playing. He'd be looking, when he wasn't playing, he's looking at my hands. And that's what Stutt Smith said. You know, I don't know why people haven't discovered you playing the piano. Maybe one day they'll hear.
And that day's sort of starting now, you say, a little bit with the younger players?
Well, possibly, if I just open the door, they can't do unless I open the door, you know. Open the door, and to other musicians, saw the psychic door, and then they would understand what I'm doing. But actually, I've had a closed circuit, you know, like closed circuit TVs, and they couldn't get in.
Do you think it could be illustrated in any kind of piano book, or would have to be a direct teaching? Is there any way that you could, if you chose to open the door, to convey it to other pianists?
Of course, I'm a teacher, and I can
know.
teach anybody anything. I took teacher's training in college, and I'm very good at it, to make things that are very complicated quite simple if I wanted to. But then what price glory, or whatever you call it, I didn't need that. I got a lot to offer this planet. As I say, they deal with politics and religion and money and all those things, and they're quite happy in their ignorance. Why should I interfere? What does it mean to me? If they're happy of being ignorant, then they are really being part of something greater. I'm not supposed to interfere because I'm not a human, I'm an angel. I used to be an angel. But
and you've always been polite.
I used to be an angel, but the other night in Camden, the MC got up and said, I want to introduce the Archangel Sun Ra, so I ring up and promote it. Because I didn't tell him that, He said it. And the way this stuff is, whatever man says, the Creator writes it down. And see, that's where they have to be careful. Whatever they said, he began to work on what they said. And they're not aware of that. They don't care how wrong it is. He'll build up on it. He'll go on about maybe 100 years building up on something they said. And it might be ever so wrong. He still build on them. And that's what they don't realize.
Well, maybe early Tuesday morning, all of us should just freeform say things about our feelings and niceties towards Sun Ra, and maybe we'll come up with something that can be built upon.
Well, of course, that's where the key to the whole situation in the world is based upon what people said. That's when in the early days the spirituals being sung when these people saying, you better mind what you said. You better mind what you're talking about. You got to give account in glory. You better mind. You better mind what you're saying. They were saying that, and it's quite true. They're right. And the bad part about it is that the United States is a place of glory because America means house of glory. The way they spell it, they're not spelling it the Hebrewic way, but the Hebrewic way, America means house of glory. And the flag is called Old Glory. So this is a place of glory. So out of all the countries in the world, watch what you're saying in this country, because it's quite different. It's a spiritual magic place, and all kind of things can be done by what you say, what you proclamate. You got a lot of confusion here because
well, it is, since it is America, I'll go by the rules and say this is WKCR FM New York, 89.9 megacycles on your FM band, and we are transmitting now the words, the information, and the musical and the spiritual that we can garner from listening to Le Sun Ra, who is speaking to us live in our studios as the highlight, there's something I said, the highlight of our Sun Ra Festival. And I'm very pleased that you're here. I like to use the words of someone who used to tell me about Chicago in the early years. He is not someone we were able to interview this week because he died a few years ago, and I'm speaking of the bassist Ronnie Boykins. And Ronnie, when he used to visit the station over the years, the one thing, and I remember him telling me over the years that he said over and over again, was the rehearsal, you'd be stunned when it was 8 hours long, and then he'd surprise you and it'd be 16 hours long. So the question, although I'm adding some of myself to this on top of what Ronnie Boykins told me, is what was the purpose of the rehearsals themselves being so long, so incredibly long in terms of hours and energy expended?
It was because the Spirit of God was there. And I couldn't stop rehearsing until it left. Because all my rehearsals, the Spirit is there. And when it's there, then things can happen. But when it leaves, it's no need of me rehearsing. As long as it's there, I rehearse. It'll be there. But when it leaves, I might just not rehearse. Because it's not going to do any good, They build that human element and the man thing. And you can't teach a man nothing. You can only, if you activate his spirit, you can. But he's such a big dummy until he get distracted by things. And you can't teach anybody anything if they got these distractions going on. So a spirit being, we don't bother about it. If they're distracted, we push them over there to that distraction, let them have a nice time until maybe they might wake up. Some of them don't wake up until they're getting ready to die. Then they can see things clearly, but then it's too late. No doubt they have to come back here. They didn't make it, and they have to go back, start all over as a little baby, which is really a curse to come back here. Everybody's talking about being born again, but really that's a curse to have to come back to planet Earth. But they think it's a blessing, but they got everything backward, and I'm not about to try to get churches to believe what I'm saying. It's not going to do any good because all of them going to die in a nuclear warhead anyway, every man, woman, and child, and there's no need of trying to do anything for them if they don't listen. If they listen, they can save themselves, but they don't listen, they are going to die. The Pope said that about 6 months ago, that every man, woman, and child on this planet is subject to be eliminated forever. He didn't say nothing about Jesus saving them. He said they had to change. So it's not me talking that fanciful things. I'm talking about things that they could do something to change things if they use the first law of nature. It's whether they've forgotten nature. They should use the first law of nature. And that means if they do that, they'll listen to what I'm saying and do something about it, because it's up to them. I'm very well in tune with the angel of death and with God and Lucifer and the devil and whatever you got. They're all my friends. And so therefore, I don't have anything to worry about. But they do, because they're not friends with these beings.
Do your musicians ever have anything to worry about? Your musicians, the players in the orchestra.
Well, John, about 3 months ago, John told me, he said, you'd even fire me, wouldn't you? I said, yes, if you got in my way, I would. I'm here to do something on this planet, and no one is get in the way. So if you frustrated me, you got in my way, I would fire you. So he was crying, and he knew I meant it. So he got back in the truck. But
were the rehearsals in any way a test or a challenge to your musicians to see if they were of the right metal for the orchestra? Was that part of why they were so long and so strenuous?
Well, not necessarily. I'd be judging about. I knew Ronnie wasn't going to make it. I'm judging about by something else. Like as a singer, I'm interested in now. I saw him the other day the first time, and I told him to come out to rehearsal. So he did. The first thing I saw was his humility. That made me interested. But, he could be ever so great and don't have humility. I wouldn't be interested, because then I've had cases where I just build somebody up, like the amateurs, and I build them up. But they wouldn't be amateurs long, and something happened. They didn't make it. Their pride jumped in the way. They didn't make it. So then I have to deal now with humility. If they got this strange humility, which is very alien to human beings, and then I'm interested. Somebody got humility, they're treasured. And this singer does have that. So then I was utterly amazed. Sometimes I meet people that amaze me in this jungle, and that's what I go by now. I be looking for this strange thing about people. Some of them have it. In Germany, I saw 3 horses that had it. They couldn't play the instruments, but they had souls, and I knew they had a soul. I was utterly amazed that here were some horses that had more soul than men and women. Something is happening, maybe they're evoluding up to be what people should be, but they definitely had souls. Now, some people are empty. At this point, they don't have any souls. If they have it, it's at such a low level that it's almost non-existent. And it's a possibility that those who are not using their souls, it would be transferred to somebody else,
Well, this is some soulful experience here, our visit and lesson from the teacher. Sun Ra. Sun Ra is here, live in our studios at WKCR FM New York, 89.9 on the dial. A highlight here, our interview with Sun Ra on the Sun Ra Festival. My name is Phil Schaap. I hope I am learning as much as I can from these statements, and I know that I've learned, or at least enjoyed and learned from the music. We're going to play some of the music that Sun Ra has brought to the studio. We have a record queued up on the turntable, but one question before we listen to some music. In your music, is the sound, the timbre, of equal value or more value or less value than pitch, than an actual designated pitch. The way the note sounds rather than what the note is.
It's like nature. You can't find two leaves alike. So therefore, the notes can't be exactly the same. If they hit two notes like a C, and it's hit about 5 or 6 times, each C got to be hit differently. Now, each one of them, you can't hit them on the equality basis. They got to be hit different, so each note would have individuality. That is what a lot of musicians don't have. They don't know how to play, and they hit that C the same way. It's intolerable with me. I can't have that. It has to be where they be hit the proper way. Maybe one of them supposed to be louder, one of them supposed to be softer, but then you have to have feeling to do that. You can't teach anybody about the timbre of notes by just tell. They got to come in with that feeling, like a prize fighter comes in with that potential, and basketball player. Everybody has these potentials, but some have potential to drive race cars. Everybody can't get out there and drive a race car. They can't even drive around the corner one block. But they weren't meant to do that. But some men do, and women too. Mm-hmm. They do have that potential, and they can do it. And that's what the world got to do. It's got to get some people who can do things that are natural and put them in their proper place instead of trying to make somebody do something that they can't do because they wasn't meant by nature to do it. It's quite simple.
Would I be ranking things in order if I were to say from top towards bottom, spirituality, this is in terms of what the music should represent, spirituality, feeling, sound, pitch, in that order?
Well, Cosmo, omnivorous spirituality, because you got a lot of spirits that are very evil, and they've been in charge of this planet a long time. And when I first came on the planet, they knew they would never conquer me and never get me to be part of that, whatever they're doing. And they fought against me bitterly, but the more they fought, the more I laughed up my sleeve, because I know that if I just bypass this planet, I would have won a great victory. I felt if I really conquered this planet with words, I would have lost my objective to bypass it. So you see, it's a very strange situation where men have fought and died trying to get the people on this planet to be their slaves or to be such. And I've been trying to say, well, no, and that the people don't change. I don't want nothing to do with them because I will desert them if they don't change. So I'm not going to get in a position of leadership and they're not obedient, and I just let them have it. Let them be free. Mm-hmm. And that's not right to do that. So that's reason I don't have a church or anything like that, because they get over there and they say, if they say, well, I'm for you, and they demonstrate they aren't, they get left. And then they'll be out there and they'll be in a worse condition they were before, because they will know then, and then they can't get back there and get over there with the people who don't know, and they're in the most dreadful position. But then once I turn them loose, that's it. I would not come back. They would have to have some kind of special permission from the Creator or something. But you got 5 billion people on this planet, and they give a chance to somebody else. It's very simple, you see. You give it to somebody else, or somebody who hadn't heard about it. You give them a chance. Like I told a fellow who was dancing with us. He was disobedient, so he been trying to get back in the band. I said, well, 5 billion people on the planet, you get at the end of the line. I get to you after I get to the other 5 billion.
We're going to get to some of the music that Sun Ra brought here today as part of our Sun Ra Festival.
You're listening to WKCR, and this is the Sun Ra speaking, the Sun Ra speaking, Sun Ra, voice of the cosmos.
The music of Sun Ra here at the home of technical difficulties on radio station WKCR FM New York, 89.9 on the dial. Phil Schaap here with you. In the studios is Sun Ra. These are live radio proceedings going on at this time. We just heard some music from an album that we might say had a scanty amount of information on it. West End, Sun Ra 4, 5, 6. We did hear some solo work from Michael Ray on trumpet on the third of the selections, which I might call as 6. Any comments you'd like to make on that music, Sun Ra?
Victor Sproul is one of the mainstays of the band in Chicago. I always thought to have bass players who really was basic, you might say. And Victor Sproul was one of the ones.
Okay, we had a typical KCR experience here, which of course is something that was working perfectly well a few minutes ago, in which we had allocated to the most important chair in the room. The red one over there with the new microphone became quickly the broken apparatus. We have repaired it, and we are back on the air. You're listening to the Sun Ra Festival on radio station WKCR FM, New York, 89.9 on the dial. A little bit bewildered, but now I think righted ship here, going to a new land of cosmo neutrality and musicality. I'm Phil Schaap. With me is Sun Ra. We just heard some music from a Saturn 12-inch LP labeled Saturn 456 Sun Ra, and with the handwritten heading West End. And of course, I do remember a rather joyous visit from Sun Ra at the West End. That's across the street. This is here at KCR, and we're really glad that you're here. I'd like to head in two directions about musicians. We were speaking a great deal of musicians while we were feasting on some ice cream, some oranges, and apples here. And your bass players you were speaking of, and the kinship you feel between Cecil McBee and Wilbur Ware. I'd like to ask you some questions about musicians who've come on the scene playing music which some relate to your music since you started creating your orchestra. What do you make of, and what did you think, and where do you place in your ears and feelings the music of Ornette Coleman?
Well, I liked him when he first came out, the rhythm section with Don Cherry. See, I liked that, what he was doing. But he's over in another school, another dimension. But he's doing something different. He's had quite some difficulties about it, too. But another school, maybe the Earth School on a higher plane. But I'm dealing with something totally alien to this planet. Totally immeasurable, totally impossible. And if people don't believe it, well, it's their natural instinct not to believe something that has nothing to do with them whatsoever, because they're born just to die here, and they haven't had any opportunity to do nothing else. This is offering them something else, and not because they're righteous, because I never met a righteous one, and I'm sure I never will. So therefore I wouldn't dare impose on the people talking about looking for somebody righteous, because wouldn't nobody make it. But it's something about a spirit, the spirit of people. Some people got this spirit. They're kind of scattered in all nations, really, everywhere over this planet. They're not at home with their family, not school, not church, not anything. They're just out there. I suppose those are the ones I came to. They ready to go somewhere else. And that's what I'm talking about. Somewhere, it's a big omniverse out there, and they can go outside this universe to other places because they have evoluted to that particular stage where things here are very insignificant in comparison to what they feel. They have a feeling that there's something else, and they're right too. Something else is on the ultimate plane, and I meet people, sometimes I look at them. I go to different countries, and I look at people and see that they are part of whatever this is.
Mm-hmm. Are there musics made by people on Earth that have caught your attention that you like? You said you liked Ornette Coleman when he first came on the scene with people like Billy Higgins and Ed Blackwell. And
Billy Higgins played with me.
Yeah.
I like big bands. Mm-hmm. I don't like small combos because they can express themselves just so far, and they're limited. Although they can do some very wonderful things, they're still limited. I like big bands because I like a lot of sounds. I like Jimmy Lunceford. Sounds wonderful. I like Fletcher Henderson. Some things kind of basic for you. I like that. But basically, above all, I like the discipline of Fletcher Henderson, and no one else has ever come up to that. And incredibly enough, they were so together that I'm beginning to say they couldn't possibly have been men. They must have been angels. Because although other music might play their arrangements, it's not the same. Something else over in there. And like Coleman Hawkins said, that Fletcher Henson's band had never been recorded. The people never heard the band because they never could catch certain something in the music. It couldn't be recorded.
Did you speak with Coleman Hawkins about Fletcher Henderson when you worked with him?
Well, I don't remember doing that. No, I missed a good opportunity to do that.
Because he was part of that band, he might have been more than.
Well, he did say something like Fletcher. It would have been better if he'd stuck with stomps instead of branching out to other things. He did say that.
Yes, I know. In fact, something that maybe many of the major musicians should have been afforded is an opportunity to make these speech records, talking records, because Coleman Hawkins set down a lot of important thoughts on a double pocket with that Riverside records. That's very valuable. And
very wonderful things. Unfortunately, this planet was so busy with other things, they let something, they had a touch of the Creator in them, you see, spirit of the Creator. And I would say they were of more value than churches because they were directed from the Creator. The churches were dependent upon a book. They were outside the book.
We're talking with Sun Ra. This is the Sun Ra Festival on WKCR FM, New York, 89.9 on the dial. Phil Schaap in the studio with the hosts of Sun Ra's musical colleagues and friends, hosts of KCR people. We're working here at the station, particularly the festival coordinators, Charlie Blass, Andy Rotman, and Mitch Goldman. Program director Brian Kaiser is peeking through that window. We're all here, and one of the things we just heard as Sun Ra was speaking to us is an interesting reason for appreciating the big band, because there can be more sounds made by more pieces. And he isolated some of the distinct sounds of the big band swing era. Jimmy Lunsford's orchestra, which had different arrangers given different sounds at different times. The Basie thing, which had a whole new way of swinging the blues. And then you isolated Fletcher Henderson's band as the premier one in your opinion and in your listening. What did Fletcher Henderson's band do musically that you feel was so blessed, so much from the creator?
Because I like Tatum too. You know?
I know.
Fats Waller. I like all the piano players. Nearly all the piano players make it in my book because they always be doing something.
But what did Fletcher Henderson or Fletcher Henderson's band do that makes you call them the greatest of the bands that you heard?
Because it's together. It's like one man, and it's clean cut, you know. It's not any fuzz in there. It's just clean cut, and that makes it. It's so clean cut. Sometimes you might think it's just 2 or 3 pieces, but it's the whole band, and you wonder. You listen for the second part or something. It's there, but it's down up under the first parts. Most bands, you see, you can hear the other part overriding the first. Not in his band. It was perfect. That was his brother. Nice band too, Horace Henderson.
Sure.
But it was a difference in it. Even though Horace sometimes would play with Fletcher, it still was a difference when it was up under the name of Fletcher, when he was in charge. That made it most remarkable.
Right. Sun Ra, speaking of Fletcher Henderson, discipline's a word that you use in your compositions, in your conversations, and perhaps in your appraisal of some of the greater musicians you've encountered. You even used discipline over freedom as one of your preferences of the cosmos. What sort of discipline do you invoke on yourself to improve your abilities as a musician or as a composer or as a band leader?
Well, see, I have to go by the book, which they call the Word of God. It says, a man cannot learn without discipline. And I have found out it is true, although I don't particularly like the book. It does. It is the truth. It's not my kind of truth. It says, a man cannot learn without discipline. I found that out, that when they get in this band, if they don't have any discipline, some kind of way, one day I'm going to tell them to do something, they don't do it, that means they're through.
When you said book, you were referring to the Bible a moment ago.
That's right.
What are some books that you have read that you would want, let's say, me to read?
Well, it's some forbidden books, you know. X-Ray and Searchlight. It was a 7 Day. That's one book that's very hard to get. Written by a slave, a person who'd been in slavery, who had a 6th grade education, who said that God dictated him to write that book. It's got all things, and a lot of things in that. It's incredible. That's one book.
And what is the title of that one?
It's called X-Ray and Searchlight of the 7th Day.
Searchlight of the 7th Day?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any others?
Well, Blavatsky wrote a lot of things of interest, and the different books that she wrote. Secret Doctrine. It's all kind of books. God's Children by Archibald Rutledge. That's very interesting. And of course, the Bible is very interesting, but you should read mythology. All the books on mythology got secrets hidden over in them about things. Gilgamesh Epic is interesting. It's got some in that is very violent. It was written before the Bible. And way back there in Syria, in Babylon, with them folks who were supposed to be sinners, they were worshiping God too, and that's what they were talking about. It's a valiant. And then the Egyptian, of course, the top thing is some of the wisdom of the Egyptian sun priests that were living in Heliopolis, but you don't even have nothing left there but one little obelisk where they were. But that proves that they were dealing with something that was very important. But they're obliterated. But what they were doing was not obliterated. It's very important for this planet to find out what were they talking about. Because they were talking about immortality, one thing. And secret wisdom, Moses was over in there studying at school too. He just made a lot of mistakes because he didn't stay long enough. You know, a little learning is a dangerous thing, so Moses didn't stay that long enough. They taught him the black writing, but they didn't teach him the red writing. And the red writing is very important at this point for to save this planet. The red writing, not the black writing.
Could you give me an example of red writing?
Well, it is stated, not as I am written am I read. So you spell red, R-E-A-D, you spell R-E-D too. So then you got these trick words, phonetics. Everything spiritual came from the East, and the East loves play on words. They love that.
As do you, yes?
Well, in a sense, I don't really love it, but it becomes necessary sometime to see what they did that's affecting us now. You have to know what they did. And everything would be resolved between the East and West if you know the way they think and what they did. And some things they said is really a trap to the East. And they going through this thing of killing and murder and all that kind of stuff. Righteous people too. But they trapped by words. And so this planet is really trapped by words. And they're going to get out if somebody know the right words to say to trigger the cosmos to do something of value instead of what they're doing. Right now, the cosmos is set up just like a giant computer machine to really just cause people a lot of harassment and destructive things like disease. The cosmos is set for something bad for this planet, but it's because of the words that they've sent up there, you know. And these words are trapping people and destroying them. When they say they believe in some things, and some things they say they believe in is not good for them, but they're supposed to be intelligent enough to stop saying these things. It's destructive for them. But that's all what's wrong with this planet. They're saying things that are destructive for them and make them self-destruct. That's when they need somebody over them to guide them at this point where they can get out of this. But if they try to do it themselves, they're not strong enough. They're dealing with cosmic forces that judge you like a teacher. If they might ask you some questions to another person, they might ask you, what's the good word? And then you answer. You think you're talking to that person, but you're not. You're talking to the cosmic master. Say, what's the good word? And then ask you, what is the good word? And you're supposed to say what it is. And if you answer correctly, like a friend of mine died 3 times. 3 times he died. It's on record in Philadelphia. Played Congo drum. Name is Crowder. And on one of the deaths, he said he went to a tunnel and saw a light. He followed this light. And he met 2 beings on the other side. One of them was God and one of them was Satan. And I said, did they seem unfriendly to each other? He said, no. They were on very good. I said, that's what I thought. They're on good terms together. They're fooling the world together. So then he said, they asked him the same question. What's the most sacred thing in the universe? He said, first he said the water. Then he said fire. He finally said he didn't know. But suppose he had answers. You see? So don't tell these people have experiences. And they ask things. You like in school. This is a school here. And you're supposed to answer when one of those cosmic beings asks you something. You're supposed to answer them. The whole planet can change. If you can find one to give the right answer. Unfortunately, they don't know the answer.
We're talking with Sun Ra, who presents some suggestions, if not answers.
So I'm playing in the music. I'm telling them answers in the music. If they listen to the music, they will learn something, but they have to be, well,
Sun Ra, before we talk about the music, which actually is something that I'm overjoyed to do, earlier I'm asking questions, I'm not providing answers, and I'm also speaking for some other people. A lot of great musicians have come into this room, have been part of the Sun Ra Festival, and have offered questions for us to ask you, and we did sort of over the last hour or so. But a lot of the listeners, the people, if I might speak for them, and it's hard to, join them all in one question, but they have all sorts of curiosities that perhaps you might like to take care of. For instance, let me just offer some. Do you speak more than the English language on the languages on the planet Earth? Do you speak any other languages beside English, of our languages on the Earth?
I'm speaking music as a language.
Okay.
I find it much better to speak that way because words can be twisted and turned and everything. But music is something that's pure. And if you're playing something sad, people will know it. If you're playing something about love, they'll know it. If you're playing something about war, they will know it. They will know what that song expresses. So I find it's better to express myself in music. Although in foreign countries, sometimes I send people out to get something for me and they don't know the language. They don't never bring it back, and then I go out and I get it. And that made people think I must know all languages. But I can't explain how I go out and get what I want and say, see that? It's easy. And, like I was looking for iodine over there. And everywhere I went, couldn't get any iodine. They didn't know what you was talking about, you see. So finally I had to call the creator on the case. So he said, well, you make the symbol for iodine. They know what you mean. So I found the symbol and went there and I got me some iodine. But they called it by another name. But the symbols are the same, you see, all over the planet. So therefore, if you knew the symbols are different things from the cosmic forces, you get things done. It would be recognized. Symbols are quite important. I use symbols quite often,
One of the symbols that is important to people on Earth is the concept of family. A lot of the listeners wanted you to be asked, could you tell us something of the people you were with when you were growing up in Birmingham, or any family since that time that you could speak of? Or your family?
Well, at 3 years old, the Creator separated me from my family. He said, well, I'm your family. And from then on, I was under his guidance. I was there, and I wasn't there with them. They didn't know nothing about my relationship with the Creator. I never spoke of it. My friends didn't know anything about it. Nobody knew. I suppose they wasn't supposed to, but that's who guided me. And I said, and I wondered, how did I get through school and college and all that without the family? How did I have everything I wanted?
Were you physically separated from the family that had raised you till the age of 3?
No, I was there, but I wasn't there, I was there and I wasn't there.
And could you tell us the schools? You've referred to your collegiate experience, and we've talked about it before. what actual schools did you attend? Could you call them for us?
Well, I was in Birmingham. I was there. I wasn't there because I didn't know nothing about prejudice in the South until I was 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't go nowhere else. I was right there. So I was there and I wasn't there. I didn't know. Well, until I was 14 years old. That just showed you I was out to lunch or something.
Uh-huh.
But I was out to lunch with the creators, so it was all right.
What college did you get sent to eventually?
Well, I went to. Well, eventually, the main one I was at was at A&M College in Huntsville, or Normal, Alabama. Up there I was right near the space by Von Braun. I was right up there with. And
of course, you were there first.
Yeah, but I was right there where they developing this rock. And then I went to Bama State where Erskine Hawkins was. I was down there for a while, a short while. Well, I didn't go anywhere else, but that main school. I went to high school in Birmingham, and I was sort of isolated. I was protected. I was in the first grade. In first grade, element from the primer grade up to high school, I had the same seatmate. I had the same classmates. There was no change. I went all the way through elementary school with the same people. I went to high school, junior high, same people, and I graduated with the same people that I started with, which is quite unusual.
How did you get
impossible.
How did you get the nickname Sonny?
Well, some people said that. Some people. Well, I was talking about a stage name, and I picked the name Sonny Lee. You see, that's what I picked. And then I said, well, no, because they had a Baron Lee then.
They did. In fact, they had a trombonist, Sonny Lee.
Yeah, and so then I said, well, that's where it just stuck, and they said Sonny, you know. And then when I came to New York, you see, they be saying that Sunrise and all that, but that's impossible because, why? Because Sunrise is not a person, it's registered in New York as a business. So it's improper to say that my name was this, that, and other. It's just a business. A business name established has no family, this, that, and the other. So I saw to that. I did what Jesus didn't do. He should have registered with somebody, the government. I registered as Sunrise as a business. And so therefore, if I wanted to save this planet, it ain't nobody's business if I do. I have the authority to do business on this planet, not in a religious manner, but straight business. And if I say, well, and the business certificate do not say what my business is. I really forgot to put it on there. I did. But they stamped and sealed in New York. The Sunrise is a business. And I can just go about my father's business, you might say, which is quite appropriate. As I said, if Jesus had registered with one of the government as anything, he wouldn't have got crucified because he would have had the authority with the government. And Caiaphas, who started this whole thing about somebody dying to save the world, he wouldn't have had a leg to stand on. So I got the authority of New York City to be in business. And that's what Sunrise is. It's a business name. Now the Sunny Ra, of course, that's my legal name, stamped and sealed in Chicago by a judge. To say I'm not supposed to be known by any other name, so I could really sue me. A lot of people gave me a lot of money by them saying, since I got the legal papers stamped and sealed by the judge, that I'm not supposed to be known by any other name. So I got two things going. Sunrise of business, but Sunny Ra is a person, you might say, supposed to be known by that name only. All other names have been abolished by a judge. So see, I'm doing things legally.
Mm-hmm. But you still are fondly referred to by the nickname Sonny by your musicians, among others.
Well, it's just got a little Sonny Ra. That's Sonny. It's spelled S-O-N-Y-R. And in one language, that really means Sonny.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question. We're talking with Sun Ra. This is Phil Schaap. This is The Festival. This is WKCR FM New York. Could you tell us about the differences in the placement of your orchestra in Chicago, and what it felt like being in Chicago, New York, and then Philadelphia? Describe the three cities and your experiences in them one at a time. Chicago, New York, Philadelphia.
Chicago is where I was given all kind of tests by God, Satan, Lucifer, and the devil.
What's this?
I was given all kind of tests by God, Satan, Lucifer, and the devil to see could I stand up against the whole planet and answer them and turn them around the other way. So they will all be attacking me with words, constantly asking me questions that they thought I couldn't answer. But I answered all of them. So I had my good training in Chicago with all these people on my case. They'd look for me.
Do you think that the test was that you had to, you were playing and presenting music for other people, other bands, other circumstances, slowly evolving your own ensemble, and it took a long time for it to find its way to present the music in other places?
I'd gone to other schools, and I was over there in another school, and that was very difficult since I was hearing things that was actually shocking. They could flip a person's mind. And I had to go through that where people come up with their ideas and they say such thing. I'm a college person, so here's somebody got a 6th grade education say something that's most amazing. And he said I got a 6th grade education. But I respected that. I started to listen to what they were saying. And since they didn't know nothing about reading and all that, they were saying things from a spiritual level. They proved to me to be very informative and very important on a wisdom plane because they were speaking from the spirit. And I met men like that, a lot of them who had 6th grade education or something like that, who knew more than the others who had all this school training. So I respected that, and I still do. Quite often the creator comes and talks to me through a person, teenager, somebody, they're not supposed to know so much, but they be speaking in the spirit. And I respect that. I always listen, They be saying the most amazing things. And it's up to me as to whether I can catch on. It's like that. So I had to be educated to say, oh, well, this voice here is a strange voice. And then I listen at it, and maybe 30 years later, I can say, that's what they meant. Some things was hard for me. It was hard for me to accept. But then I know I put it all together, and it was quite true. I just need other parts to put it together. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm putting all these parts together because there's a lot of people working, trying to get me in Paris, in France, to take over all the French musicians, you see. And then I might be appointed the Minister of Culture for this thing they call ECU. Europe is getting ready to get united. And they got something, I forget the symbol they got. But if they could make me the Minister of Culture of Europe, and that would be something.
I love
because
that.
I could do a good job. When I was in Alabama, the last time a man came up to me, a white one, and said, what would you do if the governor appointed you Minister of Culture of Alabama? And I said, what would you do? I said, I'd take over the symphony orchestras first. I'd take over all the musicians. I'd change Alabama with music. And then he left.
What do you recall? It's funny, I said Chicago, New York, Philadelphia. I left out
Chicago.
Birmingham, Alabama. You were inducted into the Birmingham Hall of Fame, and you said you played with Papa Joe Jones. He went in the same day as you did.
Yeah, we played. It wasn't, they didn't have a piano, and they was in this exclusive hotel, but they didn't have a piano. They had a synthesizer or something like that. That wasn't proper, I was very unhappy about the situation. Should have had a piano. That's what Joe was used to playing with, Played something. And this bass player was with us,
Cleveland Eaton.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, that's the way it was. Quite often, some things are not appropriate. They have not done appropriately.
Well, you're always like the way you were just so warm to Papa Joe Jones's memory, just to say, you have a politeness, a courtesy, a discipline to your politeness and courtesy. Let me take you through those cities again, but let's do it a different way if you might do it with us. When I was riding with you in New York City, you pointed out something about New York City that you liked. You were pointing out ice cream stores to me, and that there were many of them, and that was something you said about New York that that you appreciated, or at least were appreciating at that moment, that there was, you know, the Yum Yum there and the Baskin Robbins there and the Haagen-Dazs there and this, that, and the other thing. Taking you now back to Chicago, let's say, what were things in the city that you appreciated and liked?
Well, I appreciated the people fighting so hard against me because I overcame it, you know.
You're talking to the experiences.
I really liked the challenge, and I was constantly overcoming them. It's good training for the world. When I came to New York, something else happened. The building I was staying on 83rd Street, practically every night, it would be set on fire. Quite often, Ronald Buff was coming late, and he'd be talking about the fire, putting out the fire. It was constant like that, so I told owner of the place about it. Why all these fires being set? He said, they're being set to run you out of New York. I said, well, why do they want to do that? He said, your enemies. And I said, but I haven't even been here long enough to have any enemies. Oh, yeah. I said, who are my enemies? Are they white or black? And he answered, the whole world. Yeah, the whole world. And he was a so-called Jew. He said, the whole world. But he said, you stay in this building as long as you want to. Don't care what they do. You're welcome. Stay here and fight them. Now, he didn't say, well, he didn't identify why the whole world should be my enemies, but that's what he said. Now, to put that together, I had to put it together, you see, and I've been able to put a lot of things together lately, and I can see the whole picture was like a jigsaw puzzle. So I had to be gradually taught by another being as the way things in the correct manner. I see it now. I see things that the world don't see because, you know, the wilderness is scattered in all languages. And, you know, to know all the languages. But anyway, the important words came to me. I put the important words together. That's the essential things. And I got it now. I see the picture of what's happening, like a jigsaw puzzle. And then after you put the jigsaw puzzle together, you turn it over because the other side of it means something different from the side you put it together. And that's what I did. I turned the jigsaw puzzle over, which of course is the Bible, and jigsaw puzzle. I put it all together, then I turn it upside down, and I know the answers. And I put it over to music. I'm speaking to the world through music, not because I want to, because I think the low profile is wonderful, and I can study more. I'm a scholar. I can study more when I'm not part of the world and learn all kind of things. I know about this planet, what it needs there. But I can learn these other things about other planets and other universes, and it's fantastic, some of the things I've seen and heard, and make this planet like it's not anything. How
did you choose to relocate on this planet away from New York to Philadelphia? How did that come about?
Well, it was these folks that did it, you know. They did it. I didn't intend to leave New York, but this house I was staying in, the owner of the house wanted to sell it to me. And so somebody who was a musician who's been playing with us came up, named Walter Williams, and he came up, he got into real estate. So he looked at the house and he said, this house is not worth that. You know, you shouldn't buy this house. And since he's in real estate, I was perfectly satisfied with the house and everything. I didn't get it. And it was a big mistake. He was sent to keep me from getting that house. He was sent to get me out of New York. So then I went to Philadelphia, you know. And I was there, you know. I'm still there. It's a very strange place, but it is quite strange. Maybe they might wake up, you know, because they are going to have me on public broadcast, which they said I couldn't let y'all hear it up here. It's not coming on till May something.
Is that May something to celebrate your entry date into this land?
No.
It just happens to be a coincidence that it's May something?
Yeah.
Did you arrive in Birmingham, Alabama in the month of May?
Yes.
That would be...
I suppose I did. I don't remember being born or nothing like that. I probably was here all along somewhere, passing through sometime, viewing Earthlings and seeing what they're doing to learn more about them. And you have to be able to handle a situation. I've been trained by some folks to really take charge of a universe. I'm quite capable of setting it in order. And I'm quite capable of setting this planet in order. But as I said,
would you accept if we nominated you and elected you to office on an Earth office, not a universal office? Would you accept if we tried to run you for mayor of Philadelphia or president of the United States? Would you accept?
I wouldn't have it. My job right now is to pick out some people and tell the governments of the world these belong to the Creator.
Some of the musicians.
These belong to the Creator. Don't interfere, because if they try to interfere, they get a message. And therefore, I have to do that now. In every nation, I go and say, this one, I'm taking this one. I have to do like death now. And death comes in the family and say, take them. And governments can't do anything about it. And when I come through to pick out some people, I'm going to say, you respect me like you do death. Death takes who is want. I'm going to take who I want. And that's the way it's going to be. I'm going to take who I want and say, this one belongs to me, belongs to the Creator. And death comes along and says, this one belongs to me. And all these churches and all these governments don't offer any protection for their citizens. When I pick these, they will be protected. And then maybe the rest of the world will learn. Something has to happen on this planet that's utterly astounding and make everybody want to be part of it. Well then, that's what I have to do. Although people ain't worth 2 cents and a half, I didn't make them. I wouldn't make nothing like that. But there's some folks that really interested in people that sent me here. I was sent here.
I'd like to ask you about some people who are interesting to us and certainly were associated with you. The clear, direct reference to a major jazz band leader that you worked with in your early years is Fletcher Henderson. A lot of people know of that, and you've spoken of Fletcher Henderson tonight. Then there's Stuff Smith, who thankfully one of the recordings survives, and we've heard it. In fact, the first time I heard it, you played it in this room, which was really something, another way of you giving the music when you brought it here for us so many years ago.
Some people I respect, like Fess Watley in Birmingham, Alabama.
Could you tell us about Fess Watley? There are these educators, many of your musicians, and in a way this is a linkage between, because your musicians were trained largely by Walter Dyer at DeSable High School, and you met one of the great black educators who organized a school system with music in Birmingham.
He had a
Fess
band.
Watley, and a band. And Wilson Driver still survives from that.
And I played with him, and he had this huge repertoire. Everything that was new came out, he had it. That's when I know a lot of show tunes and a lot of things other musicians don't know.
Did you do the summer tours with Fess Watley when he would leave Birmingham and when school was out and you would come north and play somewhere across the summer months? Did you ever do that?
No, he had Curly Parrish playing with him. See, that was a school teacher's band. I was still a student. So therefore, I didn't belong in that band, but it happened that disagreement came against Curly in some way and Fess Watley, and he left, and he had this huge repertoire. He had to have somebody who could sight read. And I could do that. So,
how did you gain your music capabilities in a strictly legitimate paper reading music sense? Who trained you, Fess Watley?
No, I was playing. The Creator taught me. I was reading without a teacher. My mother bought me a piano. I came home about 9 years old or earlier, 8. I was in elementary school. I got it for a rival day present. And no one had taught me anything. I sat down and played it. And then I had a friend who played violin named William Gray, and he put some music up there, so you can't play this. I played that. Then he brought some church music, put it up there. Play this, I played that. So I didn't have to buy any music for quite some time, because every day he'd go out and buy classes and everything, he'd put up to play it, and I'd play it. And he was still saying, you're playing by ear. But he brought all kind of things, Beethoven, Brahms. So I had a lot of music. I didn't have to buy any music. He was trying to find something I couldn't play, but I could play it. I was just a natural.
Did you have the same facility? Did you start reading, the English language with the same ease that you began reading music, almost like from scratch? Excuse me, pardon me for using that word again.
Well, it's all right to start from scratch, Like I said, that's the devil's name, so you don't just plant it, so why not? The next thing...
Did you learn how to read very easily, just like that? Or
when I went to to elementary school, starting the primary grade. And I stayed in there about a week. Then they put me in the first grade. I stayed in there about a week. And then they promoted me to the second senior. And then, after that, they promoted me to the 5th grade. So
I guess the answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I could read. So I didn't go to the 3rd grade and 4th grade. They kept promoting me. So when I got to the 5th grade, then we moved on. I moved on up to the 8th and like that. And I went to junior high school. Then I went to high school. So I knew things.
Sun Ra on the Sun Ra Festival, WKCR FM New York. Phil Schaap in the studios. People are amazed just hearing about the facilities of Le Sun Ra. I'd like to, before we go to some music, you've called Coleman Hawkins' name, Stuff Smith's name, Fletcher Henderson's name, Fess Whatley's name. A name, someone in the early years that you worked with and admired, or perhaps did not admire, but a name, another one of your musical associations, a band you were a part of. Just
Avery Parrish, who was in the same class I was. And his first composition, he wrote it because I wrote one. And we were very good friends.
Avery Parrish was a keyboard player, though. If you played with him, what did you play?
Well, I mean, piano. In fact, I went to his house quite often. We played duets together.
4 hands, 1 piano?
Yeah.
Wow. You didn't have recording devices then, though?
No, he was ill. He got hit in the head and everything. And so I went, this is a case where I went to try to rehabilitate, and I could have done it too. But unfortunately, he left that city, and he came to New York, and he was killed in a doorway here. So they said he's mugged. But yeah, he's a good friend of mine.
What do you think of After Hours, Avery Parrish's big hit?
Oh yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, he was always well liked in school. Everybody liked Avery. He's a very likable person. He was very kind. Like his mother said, how could anybody hurt somebody like that? Because like she said, if he saw somebody that didn't have an overcoat, he'd give him his. His mother was talking about, he's always doing something like that. If he had some shoes, they didn't have any shoes, he'd give him that, and he'd wear his old shoes. He was very kind. In New York City, they said it, during Depression, he was always have food for other musicians that come out. So, but I mean, nothing protected him.
Which other members of the Bama State Collegians, the famous musicians who became Erskine, which other ones did you know as friends?
Paul Bascom.
Did you play?
Bascom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I played in Paul Bascom had a band. I played with him and Doug Bascom. Yeah, some more. That was an early band. I played in Fred Avery, Society's Troubadours. Played him.
What about the band?
That's a nice band.
What about the band you brought to Chicago in late 1934? Was that your band?
In a sense, it was. It wasn't a band I liked everybody in the band, but it was forced upon me by the fellas in the band who wanted me to take over. I didn't want a band, because my low profile was valuable to me. But they just imposed. They just said, well, you're just our leader. It really had been Ethel Harper's band. She's a school teacher there. And then they were getting so teased because the woman was leading the band until they fell for it. And they said, well, we have to have one of us. At least she brought a uniform and everything. She was dressed impeccably. She was all right. And I really resisted the idea. They were insistent, you see. Well, there were some folks that wanted to really get rid of the band. So when they did that, then there were some folks that wanted us out of town. And that's when we booked all up around Carolina and Virginia and everything to get us out of Birmingham. It still didn't work, But finally I got tired of the battle, and I went to college, to get rid of a band. They followed me to college, and I still got one. It just meant, because the creator knows that if I didn't have a band, I'd be in Egypt being a camel driver or something, staying on the desert, I wouldn't worry about the world, about them hearing me. I wouldn't do it. But I'm in captivity by some folks that says, well, you have to do this. And so I have to.
It's more than captivity. It's also because you love music.
But I love music yes, I do. It's the only thing worthwhile on this planet.
Well, let's hear
It's
some
pure,
music.
you know. It's pure.
Could you tell us about this music you brought for us, the Wilbur Ware thing?
Well, yeah, Wilbur came down the house one day. Well, you know, in Chicago, we were always together playing. So then I was doing these other things, and he was interested. He was always telling, just play the standard. I said, I'm not going to play the standard. Play what we played in Chicago. I said, I'm not going to do that. You have to play what I'm playing now. And so he came on down to the house one day, and I recorded that. It's very nice. And so he was playing avant-garde, you know. He played it. It sounds very nice. And that's for instance, Cecil McBee is such a good friend of his. I told him I was going to play that for him. Okay. So he can hear Wilbur playing avant-garde.
And you're playing on this too? Is it?
I'm playing on that.
All right.
Yeah, it's very nice. Okay. It's very interesting. It's quite different, you know, to hear him play what you might call avant-garde.
Mm-hmm. You're listening to the sounds of jazz and a voice from the cosmos, the presence of Les Sun Ra here on the Sun Ra Festival. 116 hours of continuous radio activity presenting Sun Ra's message and music, going around the clock till Tuesday morning, this Sunday night, midway or three-quarter mark, if you will, being spent with a visit from the presence himself.
Of course, there were people like Jimmy Dorsey and others that were doing some things out of the show. I was familiar with everybody, Boyd Rayburn. I was familiar with all band leaders because I was interested in band leaders. I was also familiar with all piano players, Les Lewis, all of them. So I could appreciate what they were doing. They were from different sections of the country, and they played what they felt.
Did you know Bud Powell?
I never met him because I was in Chicago.
Because he doesn't have too many quotes left behind because he didn't say much, but he said, don't forget Boyd Rayburn, and you just called that band's name too.
Yes.
Would you say it would be wise for people who like music on Earth to listen to Boyd Rayburn's band? Would that be okay?
Of course it's all right, because every band has something to say. The good part about it that you have men together who are not in an army to destroy people. It's something to have men working together for beauty and for precision and discipline. It's wonderful. It's the most wonderful thing about the planet, that you do have men who are armed folks who have to be in there, but you have some more who are doing some other things that's not destructive, but unification and discipline, because they have to be disciplined to play music. If they're in a band, they got to listen to somebody. And that's what all men ought to learn, that they need to listen to somebody, because you take the basketball players, they got to listen. Prize fighters got to listen. Actors got to listen to a director. So I would say every individual person needs to listen to somebody, because successful people are those who listen to somebody and do as told or try to.
I think what Sun Ra just said is that the best armies are the orchestras or the orchestras. And they certainly are. But we have a small group recording here of Sun Ra with Wilbur Ware, which Sun Ra brought for this festival, and which he dedicates towards Cecil McBee and shows Wilbur Ware in a different musical vein. An exciting episode in the musical career of Sun Ra. A visit by Wilbur Ware. Was this in the Chicago period?
No, that was in the Philadelphia period.
That's fairly...
He finally moved to Philadelphia.
I know, he lived there the last decade or so of his life. So this would be in the 70s sometime, in the early or middle
like
70s.
That, yeah.
Wilbur Ware, who of course has been associated in the Chicago period, came to Sun Ra's in Philadelphia to play the music of Sun Ra of that time, to join with it freely and in tandem. We have a most remarkable recording, and you could clearly hear through the recordist, who also was Les Sun Ra, the separation, because the bass was in the right channel, and you could hear Wilbur Ware playing what Sun Ra referred to as avant-garde and playing freely as part of it. And that was really a joy to listen to with you. And thank you so much for bringing that music there with us. There's a bit more music that Sun Ra wants us to play, so perhaps we'll get into some things that maybe we could walk through the career of Sun Ra with his presence here to amplify on certain points. You are listening to the Sounds of Jazz, the Sun Ra Festival, 116 hours of radioactivity here on radio station WKCR FM, New York, 89.9 on the dial. Before I go back to the beginning, I'd rather jump into the middle. Sun Ra, could you remember for us your reception in New York when you arrived here in the early 60s and the Monday nights at Slugs, the formation of the choreographer's workshop at 414 West 51st Street? Can you tell us of these things?
Well, the first time we were supposed to play the Charles Theater, I think everything was all right. And Thomas Hunter at Bugs was playing drum. So I told him now, don't be leaving your drums in your car, you know. It's got this important concert coming up, so you should not leave them in there. So the night before the concert, he left his drums in his car. They took the car. They didn't take the drums, took the whole car. And there he was. He didn't have any drums. And although we had rehearsed and everything for our debut in New York, he didn't have any drums. So I had to hire another drummer that didn't know anything about what we were doing. He mostly was on the African side, you know. New York musicians thought that's where I was, so they recommended him. So we played and everything. New York Times said, so...
That was in Olatunji, wasn't it?
No.
Oh.
We played the Charles Theater, and the New York Times said that the musicians took out their weapons and they began to play. That's what they said, took the weapons out. And they said we was playing like African and different things, but we wasn't doing that. But I had to take the band and move out sort of toward this drum. The one we had is they not obeyed, and they took the whole car. Of course, he got the car back and the drum later on. But the point of it, there were those folks again that was embarrassing me and trying to make it sound bad, I would say. But it didn't happen. I kept on moving because I used my spirit side, and it's always going to win, you know. So it did.
Were there any?
That's what happened.
Were there any new musical influences for you upon your arrival in New York? I mean, your early influence is clearly a love for some major keyboard players, the people who you were affiliated with in Alabama and other places, and the big bands. What had an input on your music? That affected your music in any way, shape, or form in the 60s?
It didn't, because like Mingus, I saw one day, so he was saying, you know, that Catherine Dunham wanted some new music. And I said, why don't you play it? He said, no, well, that's not really what she wants. What she wants is what you got. And you go down there and you tell her, I sent you. So I went down there. And so Catherine Dunham told me to play. I was playing the piano, and she was dancing by what I was playing. And then it was what she wanted, so she sent for the drummers, her original drummers, about 5 or 6 of them. And they came, and she said, well, now you play with him. So I played, and then the drummers, she was dancing, they was trying to get in there. They finally said they didn't know what rhythm I was playing. And she said, but I'm dancing by it. See?
Uh-huh.
She told me to play. And said, I'm dancing by it. You musicians, why can't you play it? They said, we don't know. We just can't. It's another kind of idiom. And we've been all over the world with you. We've been in Africa. We've been in South America. We've been everywhere. We're professional drummers. But what he's playing, we cannot attach to it. We don't know what it is. So then again, she danced by it again. Said, see, this is the way it goes. And so that was it. They couldn't play with me, so that's when, she had to abandon the idea. But that's Mingus sent me there and said that she would like it. And I had it. She had it too. But the musicians did.
The musicians who were with your orchestra, though, had it. And one question, something does appear to my ears. Now, I can very easily be wrong on this point, but it seems to me after you come to New York, or perhaps even starting before then, but certainly in the 60s, the length of the solos in your performances grows that you're now giving a longer period of time to the improvisations on the music of the orchestra to your leading soloists, including yourself.
Oh yeah, well I did that. I'm going to do it even more extensively now that they got the ABCs of what I'm doing up to a certain point. But I'm dealing with something that is somewhere else. I got a photograph of John standing looking at me terrified. It's most remarkable. He's standing in the wings, terrified. I don't know what I was playing or what I was saying, but the terror is there. He was afraid. So a lot of times, sometimes I might say something to a musician or play something, and like a tenor man is playing me in Europe, Ronald Wilson. One night he told me, he said, "You're scaring the hell out of me." And like another time in Chicago, a guitar player from Kansas City, last name was White, I was playing something, and he practically fell off the stage when I hit this chord. And then another time at the Symphony Theater, I did hit a chord, and the two fellas playing the bells fell off the stage with they said that chord sounded like the end of the world, and they were so scared they fell off the stage. So I've had a lot of experience with music. Sometimes play something, and like for instance, I was playing in Cayman City one time, the Burlesque Club. The MC had a skit called "The Man with the Glass Head," and we had two bands there, two small groups. The other piano player would play for him, and it happened that the other piano player, the other group was whatever, in intermission for Charlie Ventura. So that made me have to play the music. So the comedian got up and he announced that, he couldn't do his skit because he had a different piano player. He doubted whether I could play that music. So I hit a chord on the piano. Everything jumped off the piano. The glasses, the music, it hit the floor when I hit that one chord. So he turned around, he looked, he said, "Well, maybe let's play what you want. I'm going to do this skit." So then he went on and did it. And after he got through, he told the people it was better than the music he had written.
What was the name of the comedian? Do you remember?
I don't even know his name. It was in a burlesque club.
Uh-huh.
And, he was a comedian and MC.
This would be the late 40s in Chicago then?
Well, I don't know nothing about dates, but maybe so. Because I always played low profile, and that was very good because I was playing in a burlesque club. I wasn't really being featured. Although one night the folks just jumped over in there, and two men out there kept on hollering for the pianist to play Clair de Lune, and they had to stop the show, and I had to play it. The only person to play it, but I had it sitting right up there before me.
Is it true that Errol Garner heard you play Clair de Lune? Is that just part of the?
Well, he came to Birdland when I was there. The waitress came and it was really one of the most embarrassing scenes for me. And she came, she introduced me to Errol Garner, and then she told me, "Now you sit right here on the front seat of Errol Garner and learn how to play the piano. And Sunrise playing the piano, and you sit down here and learn how." And he didn't say nothing. He sat right on the front seat.
Mm-hmm. So there's some truth to the thing, but you don't know whether you played Clair de Lune or whether that was.
I don't know what I played during that particular night. I was always doing something. I had a nice arrangement on Clair de Lune.
So it might be. So the whole story might be true.
Mm-hmm. But it was before. It wasn't just for him.
No.
People was in the club.
This isn't just for me, but I'm thrilled to be here listening to Sun Ra speaking. My name is Phil Schaap. This is a live interview, the highlight of our Sun Ra Festival. Sun Ra's presence in the control room has created some energy. The information is flowing. The music will be heard.
I did meet Roy Eldridge early in Cincinnati. I met Zach White. I really was meeting everybody. That was it.
What did you think of Zach White's band?
Oh, he had a good band, Zach White. and the Boatman Mills.
Yeah.
I never did hear them in person, but I did have some records. I knew about them.
There are two questions I'd like to ask Sun Ra now. Let's start with records since you just mentioned them. When you were growing up, did you have records? And did you continue to collect and listen to records across your career? And what are some records you might point us towards?
I had all the records of all the masters. I was being guided. Nobody was teaching me about jazz, but I knew the masters. I first heard Charlie Parker. I knew that was it, Jay McShann. And
you heard Parker on the McShann records.
McShann.
Hootie Blues?
Yeah. And then I had Duke Ellington playing Jazz Cocktail and Lightning. And I had those records. And I had Fletcher Henderson playing Yeah Man and other things like that. I had Fats Waller. I had Art Tatum. I had Mary Lou Williams. Well, the whole thing.
Which Mary Lou Williams did you have?
Everybody, every pianist. I was listening because I was interested in jazz. And I learned, I could tell when they were masters. I just knew that. Right. I met Dexter Gardner early, Gene Ammons, when they were playing with
Billy
King
Eckstein?
Colax.
King Colax, wow. Was Coltrane in the band?
They came by the house, huh?
Coltrane in the band with Colax then? He wasn't there yet, I guess.
I just met those two. They came by the house. I met a lot of musicians who quite often come and see me in Birmingham. And I wasn't intending to be in music like that, but they did. They came now. In fact, Blanton, some musicians told me the bass player that should be with you is staying in Detroit. In Chattanooga. You should get him. I said, what's his name? I said, Blanton. And they talked so much about him that finally I decided to go up there. But about 2 days before I was going up there, Duke Ellington picked him up, so he'd probably be alive today if I'd have picked him up.
Yeah.
Of course, they didn't take care of him. Duke himself said that they left him in this third-rate sanitarium.
Did you meet people like Thelonious Monk? Did you know him?
Yeah, I met him. In fact, I went to his house. One day, the Baroness took me there, and she was playing this. She took a record there. She was playing this record, and Thelonious was laying in the bed. She asked him, what you think about that?
It was your record.
Mm-hmm. His wife said, it's too far out. Thelonious said, but it swings.
Ooh, that's a nice compliment. So we've isolated some of the records you had during a growing up period or initial period in your being here. Included the Fletcher Henderson Blue Label Decas with Yeah Man and I guess you had Queer Motions. You must have had that.
I had that. I met Freddie Webster. He played with Fletcher.
You met Freddie
maybe
Webster?
2 nights.
And then he died.
I heard that he died while he was in Chicago. I don't know how true that was. That's probably why he didn't continue playing with us.
When Freddie Webster played with Fletcher Henderson, you weren't there?
Yes, I was there.
You were there those 2 nights?
Yes, and Club de Lisa.
They said he was featured on Body and Soul and it sounded beautiful.
Yeah, he really played wonderfully on everything. I was quite thrilled by it because I had some of his records too. And I knew he was a master, but unfortunately, they don't play his records or anything like that now. But he did some beautiful things.
Oh, they're beautiful.
It doesn't matter. Just things happen where a lot of masters came through here, and they didn't stay too long. He's one of them because he was over in some dope or something. They said.
Yeah, that's what happened. They say. He died. He played the 31st of March and the 1st of April of 1947 with Fletcher Henderson's orchestra, which also means, since you were there, that you were with Fletcher Henderson on those days.
What year was that?
47. March 31st and April 1st of 47.
Oh,
that's interesting. The Freddie Webster records that you referred to, were those the ones with Sarah Vaughan that you knew about?
No, he was playing some fast numbers, very
fast numbers with the Lunsford Band, maybe like
a group, small group,
like Frankie Socolow, The Man I Love, and Reverse the Charges, his own tune. You can't remember.
It was something else.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well,
I don't know what it was, but I remember it if you call it. But it was very good. Both sides were fast.
Both sides were fast.
It was fantastic.
Sonny Boy Williams, he made some sides on Decca. They're great recordings, too. Savoy is Jumping and Reverse the Charges. They're both fast.
Mm.
Well, we'll have to play all the We'll have to get all the Freddie Webster records to Sun Ra. We're talking with Sun Ra on the festival, WKCR FM, New York, 89.9 on the dial. An interview that is free-form but touching many important musical bases. After the records, you mentioned Clair de Lune. We heard you earlier tonight playing Prelude in C-sharp minor. In the classics, the classical composers, who impresses you? Where do you hear something that you can feel and enjoy?
Well, all of them, because I can. Well, what they play is the soul of their nation, and so if you want to know about a Russian, you listen to the musicians who are expressing that Schoenberg and Scriabin, Stravinsky, all of them had something to say. Russia has really offered quite a lot to the world in music and composers, but Scriabin is the one that interests me most. In fact, I got a package about 6 months ago, and it had on the outside from Scriabin, and it was some manuscript. It was hard to say. It said from Scriabin to Sun Ra.
Really?
I still got it out. That's right.
That's beautiful.
And it had Scriabin. Then it had the date he was born and the day he died down in Scriabin, so, and it came through the mail. And up there, it has from Scriabin.
My word.
So that was very... And in fact, when it was Christmas, I got a card and it said from Fletcher Henderson.
You got one of those Christmas cards that he used to set out with the pictures in?
I think so. Yeah, pictures on there.
Yeah,
and it said
that was his calling card.
It said from Fletcher Henderson. So I don't... it's something else happening around me.
Right.
I'm able to accept any impossibility at this point.
How about the non-Russian 20th century composers, or early 20th, late 19th, Debussy?
Yes, I used to play. Well, yes, kind of. Some more things he had too were beautiful, pianistic,
Mm-hmm.
and Brahms and Beethoven. All of them, I played that.
We're talking with Sun Ra, a live interview on the Sun Ra Festival. Phil Schaap in Master Control, with a lot of people whose eyes and ears are perking up as each of these new revelations come our way. One question that we didn't attend to, perhaps we can make it more broad-based. The Choreographer's Workshop, 414 West 51st Street, was that yours or something you came to? And when did the dancing and the other non-instrumental performers come into the orchestra presentations? Was it through that?
Well, the band can reach a certain level and they can't go any further because they've been educated on the earth plane. So that's when I started moving on the cosmic plane. They can play up to a certain degree. Then I have to lead to movements or to silence because silence speaks too. And dances, the person can express some with their hands and their eyes, like they do in the East. And therefore, if I wanted to say something, I had to have dancers too. And they could take up where the musicians couldn't go any further. Now, with just about can go, they can connect a little better now. Because I'm really expressing things on a vast cosmos level. And the people on this planet haven't been taught about it. It would frighten them, maybe. It would frighten them. Like, for instance, when I first moved to Philadelphia, sometimes some teenagers from high school would come by there at recess. The person brought them by there and said, now I want you to listen to listen to this music. Your head's going to hurt first. It's going to really hurt, but you'll have like a headache. But just keep on listening. It'll go away. So they are, again, this case where something was happening to them in the head where it would hurt seemingly. Let it go away. So that's because I said probably because they had never used their brain before. I was activating their brain and it hurt. When you use an organ that you haven't used before. And the teenagers, they never use their brain. It's just like, for instance, like when I was going to college, we had a biology teacher named Mr. Hamilton. He'd always say, well, man got two brains. He got one at the base, up top of his backbone, and one at the bottom of his backbone, and he never used the one at the top. I found out quite true.
Sun Ra. Here are a series of questions that have been offered from other members of our KCR staff. We have one from Elliot Bratton. He's referring to Notes and Tones, written by noted drummer Arthur Taylor.
That's where you got the item from.
Okay, that's the first part. Go ahead, take it from there.
Well, he was talking to me in Paris, and I told him, if you take notes and permutate it, you got T-O-N-E-S. So that's why he used the title.
All right. Here's something. I'll start off with a question of my own and bridge it into the station's question, which is, you record vast amounts of your orchestra's performances. How do you decide what's going to come out on Saturn Records?
Whatever I think people are not going to listen to, I always record it where it would take them some time to maybe 20 years, 30 years before they'd really hear it. And I recorded that deliberately because I said, I'm not a politician, I'm not a minister, I'm not anything that this planet honors. And so therefore, I didn't want to go through that starving in the attic and all that foolishness on artists. I know I'm an artist. So I wanted to bypass that particular trauma they put on artists. And sure enough, I have had difficulty.
Are the Saturn Records still in print? Is there a way for us to obtain them through you still, like there used to be with the Saturn Address and Saturn Research in Chicago?
Well, it's possible, but you know, it's sort of going underground just for a select few people, because see, something happened in Boston that made me be more wary, because a fellow up there named Bill Sebastian, and we worked together. He's in villain, and one night Bill he's playing a record called I Pharaoh, but he's also making a video with a color machine, putting the two together. He said all at once, when he put the colors together, he could feel immortality. Right at the point when I said, I don't have anything to offer this planet, immortality. He said at that point, he felt the touch of immortality. He actually felt it. And then he went and he played the tape back over. It was gone. And after that, well, another thing happened. He got this machine where he plays, color machine. It doesn't got a keyboard, doesn't make any sound, just make color. And he was always trying to get the rhythms and things when I'm doing to put it synchronized. He had great difficulty. He'd be totally dissatisfied with himself about mixing. So one night, I decided to play it over. I said I wasn't going to play it because in order to play it, you have to put this electronic bracelet where the electric current comes to your body into the machine. And I said I wasn't going to do that. But he was so desperate for and disappointed about what he's doing, I decided to play it. It was at Massachusetts Institute, top class. He said, so when I was playing it, all at once, all the clocks in the university stopped at different times. Now, one clock was going like this while I was playing, and then stopped. And every one of them, it took them about a month to fix the clocks. So what happened? My spirit went over into the electronic system. It stopped time. So after that, I said I wasn't going to play that instrument anymore. But it's a fact that it did stop time. So I'm another kind of being. You see, I'm representing something this planet has never heard about before, and I know it. But it's in a serious condition, and some folks sent me here to say, "This is the way. Do this. This is the way to avoid this accident." So you know they got all that stuff fit together. These colleges and this. They might listen. They might not. I'm not supposed to persuade them. They have to make up their minds. Do they want to survive, or are they willing to bow to death? They're going to do one or the other. No more fence sitting. And I'm not righteous either. So therefore, if I was righteous and all that, they'd probably follow me like they follow Kamini over there in Iran, He probably would. But I'm not. I'm not interested. That's not my department. I'm representing something else that affects every nation on this planet. And that's the part that's got me slowed up, because all these nations are bad as far as I'm concerned. I mean, they're bad and they're violent, and they're going the wrong way, and their opinion is horrible. But I've been to a lot of different countries. In every country, really, basically speaking, I found the people were very pleasant.
Tell me, Sun Ra, switching now to the music and the being that is your orchestra, could you do anything with a statement to parallel in your music of the cosmos the experiences of yourself and the orchestra to the history of the Duke Ellington Orchestra, in terms of, let's say, the Reed section being together for so long and a longevity of composition and presentations? Do you feel any kinship in that respect?
Well, Duke used some of my musicians. He used Pat Patrick.
Yes.
And he used Nelson Williams, the trumpet player.
Mm-hmm.
He also used Roy Burroughs, who's playing with me now. He knew about me, so did his son.
Mercer.
They knew.
When did you have Nelson Williams? In the 40s, in your earliest?
In Birmingham.
That early?
That's where he came from. At least that's where I met him. Some wonderful musicians in Birmingham.
He's in that band that came to Chicago then? The one? No, different one.
But he was sort of like he's playing so much till a lot of people didn't consider him to be using in the Black Festival. He wouldn't have used him. Birmingham was sort of like an aristocratic center. It was really society. In fact, while I was there, I never did play in what you call a tavern. I played for social clubs, black ones, who had their social clubs, and they'd be together and they'd rent a place. And every week you had a social affair you go to with the tuxedos and the eat and drink. And that's what it was. It was another kind of society. It was in a white world, but it was some people that were together, and they were very beautiful. But when I came to other cities, it wasn't like that. They didn't have what Birmingham had. They had taverns and all like that, nightclubs, and I wasn't used to that. I was used to playing for society things.
We're talking with Sun Ra. This is Radio Sun Ra, WKCR FM, New York. This is a live, ongoing interview. Sun Ra has some music that we're going to get to at the conclusion of this interview that he feels is very important, which he made a special effort to literally, physically bring to us as well as prepare for us. Perhaps we could, since I'm a little bit too much with the dates and you're not, let's go backwards through some of the points that we've touched on. Is there a possibility that you will be some sort of cultural official in Europe? Is there some talk of this? This is a recent news. Can you talk of that?
Well, it's over in the International Herald about it. And
you mean the International Herald Tribune, the paper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it had some statements in there about, psychic things. They put it in there. And then they mentioned about France. And France said, well, it was so expensive now, what I wanted to do. So they backed down off of because of the expense. But they'd be spending millions of dollars for defense. And the greatest defense is beauty and art and culture, something that is often some worthwhile to nations instead of bullets. And that's the greatest. So they should spend some money for that. They're still talking about it, First, they didn't realize that, but they've been trying to, copy it and play it. And the chords are different and in between the cracks and all that. So they finally had to write me. Well, I write it for them. Because I know pianist myself, I used to always look for strange art compositions. That's when I know about David Rose and everybody, because I was really sincerely looking for something different. I knew somebody doing something beautiful. And I spent a whole lifetime looking for those kind of people. So I know about a lot of things that other musicians don't know. But beauty and sincerity is important to me, because it's quite discouraging if you read the news or look at TV and all that, and you hear about these dreadful things, and you need something to let you know that beauty is still superior.
You have some beautiful people in the orchestra. Could you speak of them individually, the Pat Patricks, the people who are with you?
Well, yeah, well, it comes down to a point of people making up their mind. Pat been with a lot of different groups. It always comes a time where I ask a person, I might say, what do you want most out of life? And that's the moment for them. Whatever they say, it will happen. Because you see, like one time in Chicago, the MC stopped the show, plays packed with people, and said, John Gilmore, step forward. So John came out. What do you want most out of life? Stop the show. And John said, I like to travel. But I always be telling John, but you didn't ask for any money, John.
Can you talk a little bit about
So then,
go ahead.
You just have to be careful what you're saying. I wasn't too careful. I said I wanted to help this planet. And the Creator sent me the means of doing it. Sorry I said it at this point. And I look at these teenagers, and they can't nobody control them. But it's a possibility, a strong possibility that I can. I don't be around them much, but I know some sub-teenagers. One day I was sitting in the park in Harlem. Some sub-teenagers came by, about 12 of them or more, and they was over there, talking to one another. I was sitting on this bench. They passed by, and went over in another corner, past me and left. They was over there talking and whispering one another. Finally, one of them came over to me and said, we were discussing you. Are you our brother? And I said, what do you mean by that? I said, sometimes a brother is someone initiated over into a secret order. Then some of them were born brothers, but which one do you mean? So then he went back over there to them. And then he came by me, all of them filed past me again. And the last one came and said, we've decided that you are our brother, but we don't have anything to give you but this. And they gave me a matchbox. They said, that's all we have.
But they gave
you are our brother. Another time in Philadelphia, I was going up to catch up the elevator, and it was a passage that you had to go through from one side to the other way. It's a tunnel, and could nobody see you. There's about 7 teenagers out there, 8. And all of us, when I got in that, they ran and they surrounded me. And then one of them said, but he's our brother. And they left. But they had these people really surrounded. But that's what they decided. So that's twice where it happened. It happened twice. And in Germany, when a German woman said I was going to get all the teenagers in the world, and they were going to do what I said. I said, well, I don't ever be around them. As far as I'm concerned, they'll chip off the old block, and the old blocks ain't no good. So why would you do? He said, yes, that is going to happen. And she said it before 2,000 people.
What did you know about, and what did you make of Papa Joe Jones, who also was one of the great musicians to come out of Birmingham?
Oh, well, he was really playing something different. He had a sense of humor and remarkable,
We're talking with.
We had this Sonny. He was playing it on his drums.
He was playing Sonny on his drums.
I mean, Sonny Disposition. He's playing it.
Sonny Disposition. Was he playing Sun Ra?
Well, he didn't know too much. He left Birmingham, went with Count Basin with maybe Moten.
Benny Moten, you mean?
Maybe with him.
Yeah, I think of Lloyd Hunter, but
yeah, he left Birmingham and he went. So I didn't know too much about him. I was still in high school.
Yeah. We're talking.
But I knew about him.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know too much. Like Teddy Hill, he came from Birmingham. He was in New York playing on the NBC quite often. I used to listen to him. He had a wonderful band. It was really together. People don't say much about him, but his band, I would say next to Fletcher Henderson, he would be the one I would say that really had his band. Dizzy played with him.
Yeah. In fact, on those NBC broadcasts,
I think True Berry I think Chewberry played with him.
Yeah, Russell Procope, Chewberry.
It was wonderful.
Bob Carroll, a tenor player who also I think is from Birmingham. Bob Carroll, the McCords are from, but he left early and he was older.
Not familiar with him, but it was wonderful. So see, I was listening to the very best without anybody telling me what was the best. I just knew.
Mm-hmm. A couple of questions about the '60s, and then we'll walk it through one more time. The jazz composers of new music, new sounds of the '60s, they formed an organization, JCOA, in '63. They gave some pivotal concerts, and then there was this October Revolution. And also in your Chicago area, there's the AACM. What was your interplay with them, and what did you think of the music?
Well, they were talking different things, Cecil Tales and Arthur Shepard and all that. We'd be sometime at 4 o'clock in the morning talking about the commercial forces wasn't doing anything about music and all that. And then we decided to get some affairs, to raise some money for the treasure. And then I was the one who had to put the advertise. I made advertise. I did the same thing for them I'd done for my band. I had individual advertise. It's special. And with my own hand, I fixed it up. And then my band bought beer and stuff for the parties we're going to have. And nobody else did anything but talk. So finally, Wall Street sent for us. And the man said, you're perfectly right about the commercial photo system, and you're right, they need to do something about music. I give grants in New York. We're ready. But the rest of the fellows, wasn't but 4 of us there. Paul Blay, Roswell Rudd, Alan Silver, and myself. He said, where are the rest of the fellows? Now, they did all that. They didn't show up. They knew about it. So then I said, well, they're not here. He said, well, you could get this money, $1 million or $2 million for to really do something about the music. They're not here. He said, now, well, what you have to do, you select or elect one of you as the leader, and you can get this money. So then they couldn't decide who to pick out to be the leader. Paul Blake said, well, we on the freedom thing, so we don't have no leader and all that. The man said, well, okay, what I do is I make myself the leader, and we still can get this money. You can't get anything without a leader. Somebody has to be appointed so you can do that. That's where we do business. So I said, no. If musicians don't respect one of their own enough to do that, forget the millions. I don't want to be part of it. So we didn't get the millions. But I meant that I think musicians should stick together and support one another. And then people will follow the lead. But as long as they can't respect one another, well, they can't expect the world to respect them. And that's what's got to happen in America. They got to follow one person. One person is the leader.
Did you go to their concerts, though? The JCOA thing, the Summer Garden concert?
I'd be at every concert, see if they're stealing some of my stuff. But I had to see what they were doing,
Speaking of stealing your stuff, do you feel that this whole rekindling of interest in these kind of weird recordings, I don't mean weird because it was abstract in its musical conception, but it was sort of like filtered down Hawaiian music, filtered down calypso music that they now refer to as exotica, and there's something of a revival of it. There was a lot of pop exotica in the 50s, but you were creating what might be called the most centralized and authentic presentations of exotica in the 50s, to my ears.
Well, some folks in America have been trying to do everything but respect me and do what is supposed to be proper. They've been doing it a long time. Of course, it is at an end now, if it isn't, I'm just going to take this position that's been offered me at Moscow University and go there and teach the Russians, because I got it all in my hand, and I don't have to stay in America, and I'm a master musician, and I can teach any nation to play jazz the way it's supposed to be because I'm a master. So then I don't have to go begging in America about, please accept me. They need me more than I need them. They don't have nothing but money. I got spirit, and I got the creed on my side. I got everything on my side. Like I told the white person on the outside, I got Satan, Lucifer, the devil, and God, and the angel of death on my side. What do you have? So I didn't say anything, because there was nothing to say.
Well, perhaps we should restate some things that we know about. Is it safe to say we're talking with Sun Ra? This is the festival. We're going around the clock till Tuesday morning, the 21st. We've been on since Thursday. We've been here for several hours with Sun Ra himself. The music, the presence, the preferences, and a strong way of presenting cosmic neutrality. You were placed here in Birmingham, Alabama, in the month of May, around 1915 or so.
Well, probably
safe
about the year 1055 or something. I'm just an arrival on this planet, you know.
Right.
I've been around quite some time. You might call me the Ancient of Days. I'm not of any generation, because if I was, I couldn't play the music I'm playing.
Right. And the cosmic voice reached you as you were considered 3 in Birmingham.
Well, I came from somewhere else.
But
and
that voice
then it reached me through this, the maze and the dullness of human existence. It still could reach me because I'm pure and sincere. But if I hadn't been, it couldn't have reached me. I'd be like the rest of the people on this planet who are dense and in their wisdom is ignorance as far as I'm concerned. And they can't, nothing can get through to them because of the denseness they're in, the grossness they're in. But it did reach me because I came from somewhere else, and where I came from reached me and still reaching me, and it makes everything here nothing. It doesn't mean anything to me because it's not like where I came from. So I'm looking at something else. If I didn't know something else, this could be a very good planet. You can have a lot of pleasure with dope and sex and religion and different things. A lot of pleasures on the earth plane. But I know something else better because I've been part of it. That makes the difference. If I hadn't been part of something better than what's here, I could accept this as the ultimate. But I came from somewhere else, and where I came from, I was part of something that's so wonderful that no words to express it, and that's still embedded in me.
Are you going to be allowed to go there again?
Well,
and is there jazz there?
Jazz is what the Creator likes.
Jazz is the main music, then, of the cosmos.
It's creative, and that music came from the Creator directly. The rest of the stuff is sad and sanctimonious. He doesn't like that, and the Bible says so, where they got God saying, I hate your music. But see, of course, they don't read the book. But in the book plain says, I hate your music. But the Creator likes my music. In fact, every time if we're not working anything, and I said, well, put up my instrument so I can play for the Creator. And the other day, I hadn't rehearsed in quite some time. I told Danny, put up my instrument. He put the instrument up while I was playing, and Washington, D.C. called, wants to play 4 days of the theater. And Danny said, I'm beginning to see what you're talking about.
You mentioned several times, not just this evening, about the big bands being something you're majorly impressed with. There's so many sounds, so many voices. Sometimes they sound like 2, sometimes they sound like 1, sometimes they sound like everybody's doing something individually. Did you strive, you started when you first started your first bands, did you strive to have as many sounds as possible and then kept adding pieces to get those sounds? Is that how it worked?
Well, no, what happened in the Deep South, black people on a very oppressive region or something, well, they were made to feel like they weren't anything. So the only thing they had, or we had, was big bands. Unity, showing that some black men could be together, dressed nicely, doing something nice. And that's all they had. So big bands are very important in the South, and big bands made most of their money in the South when they traveled down there because they were supported by black people. And most of the time, they didn't have to play for white people. So therefore, it was important to us to hear big bands. Somebody that the world would say, they're all right. It was very important. And that's where big bands were important to me. Trios and like that. Well, we had that, good piano players. So what? But big bands was something else. And that's really I know the importance of big bands now, and I know that the black race is practically defunct now because they don't have big bands. Now, at one time they did, but there were some people who deliberately broke up the big bands. Some ethnic group, they felt that like they didn't want black people to have no dignity or nothing, so they went and broke up the big bands. Now you don't have but one that's creating, and that's me, because it's impossible for them to stand up against the folks that I represent. So they have to reestablish culture instead of putting these black folks in jail and all that and killing them. They need to establish cultural things so that they wouldn't have no trouble out of black people. But they have to have something to hold on to. They must have something to hold on to. And what is that? Creative things, and they can appreciate it. But otherwise, where they mug and rob and steal and dope and all that, it's very expensive for this country to have a people like that. But they should give them their freedom to doing cultural things their way, musically wise, whatever, to express themselves creatively. And America will not have a burden like black people are on. They will not have it. Because like they said, a dark is born, but he's no good, no how without a song.
Sun Ra speaks here on WKCR FM New York. Can I go to before your band was the full size, when it was 3 pieces and the 4 voices you wrote for? Could you describe that music for us and what your lyrics may have contained in your choral parts?
Well, about space, you know.
It was about space then, too.
Yeah, it was about space. That's what the trio was, Pat. It's about, so I wanted a space trio, you know, for my own edification and for my own pleasures, because I didn't find being black in America a very pleasant experience, but I had to have something. And what was that something? It was me creating something that nobody owned but us. And that's where it started. And that's the way it is now. I got a treasure house of music that no one has. The Arabs got oil, the Africans got tin and plutonium and all that. And all these nations got something. I have music from the Creator, which is more valuable than anything they got. Now, of course, they got their religions and all that, but this is more valuable than that. It comes to the point where is man a thinking creature, or he's the big dummy that he seems to be? It's at that point. If he's a big dummy without any feeling and all that, he would be eliminated off the planet Earth, because the Creator has no need for him. If he can't be of help to himself, if he's self-destruct, we're leaving out the age of self-destructiveness. He's got to change. It's a possibility. It's a possibility. He might. That's when I'm on the planet. He might. Because I got this planet in judgment and saying, look, I'm in human form. If they can't recognize me and I represent innocence and beauty and sincerity, then they're hypocrites and they don't fit in this omniverse. But if they're sincere, they'll recognize me as sincere, and that would mean they are sincere. But they try to bypass me, they through. I can tell them that. They're through because I'm representing the living God. And I don't have no church and nothing like that. But as far as planet is concerned, my word is law with the Creator, because we're very good friends. And if I tell him to save this planet, he will. Now, they can believe that if they want to, and they cannot, because it is no concern to us. We have control. And with all this confusion, we, and by we, I mean me and the Creator, we have control. The Creator asked me one day, are we the only ones that's just us, never nobody else?
Is it lonely for you, Sun Ra?
Well, it's lonely on this planet, but not it ain't lonely when I commune with the Creator. But it's lonely otherwise, because I don't have anybody who think like me, and they can't talk spiritual things like me because they don't know the book. Right. And they just don't know, because this planet has always been in darkness.
Well, let's switch then to something that's a much smaller, perhaps much, much, much more mundane, but it's something that we've talked about, and perhaps with many more people listening now, because this is the Sun Ra Festival. This isn't just one day in the presentations of your music. You spoke with me once about records you think you've made that were issued in the late 40s in Chicago, and they would be part more of the music before you started recording yourself. Could you give us some details about that so we can search for them?
Yeah, a lot of things out. I'm owning other names, you know.
Yeah.
The creator got my music out there, and in case they want to block me in one name, he got some more things out there
But
that I'm totally unaware of. Like it's something where I'm playing with the Dukes of Swing. Europe knows about it. I never heard the record, but I'm supposed to be on it. So
what records are you on that you remember making in the late 40s? Any?
I might have made some with Fletcher Henson. I really was busy with my spirit thing. I didn't care. I wasn't even here. I was here and wasn't here. So I didn't take any note of things that were happening around me. But I'm sure they have them because Wilson, like Coleman Hawkins when I was with him and Stutzville.
When were you with Coleman Hawkins? Is that Chicago in the 40s?
Chicago. Well, I don't know what is.
Okay, but was it the Downbeat in Chicago? What club? The Downbeat in Chicago? Which one was it?
That's the thing about it. I was on the north side, which I never played over there. Stutzville, I was playing with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they put Coleman Hawkins with him, it me because Coleman had to come in town. So during this time we was there, it was some people there making pictures constantly with these big cameras and there with the lights on. And somewhere in Chicago, they got pictures of me and Stutzville and Coleman Hawkins together. Somewhere, but I don't know who they were.
Mm-hmm.
They could have been from Europe, but they had all the equipment and they was constantly making pictures of us. It's somewhere. And there are a lot of records somewhere of me with other groups.
Right.
Somewhere in Chicago. And of course, it'll surface, you know.
There was one group that you mentioned in particular, but you can't call their names now?
Well, Jesse Miller, I played with him.
Jesse Miller, yes.
He's a wonderful trumpet player. He was on the bop. He's from Birmingham, too. He'd always be teasing me when I said, I'm going downtown. He'd always say, downtown? All Chicago is downtown.
Well, we got some people here in the room. Perhaps one of the gentlemen who has been so nice to us here at KCR, and I know has been nice to you in all your returns to New York. Tom Hunter, anything we should ask Sun Ra?
Because one thing I want to say,
Sun Ra was
to Lionel Hampton. You know, one time Lionel Hampton, he was always telling his band, according to Walter Miller, but a great band I hate. He's always telling the fellas about it. So finally, he called me up and everything. He wanted me to dress up in spacesuits, he and I, and had this big press party at, I think, at the Showboat here in New York. And I didn't go, so I know he might have felt that I ignored him. But it wasn't that. It just wasn't time, you know. I know he felt bad about it, like I ignored him, and he was trying to help me. But then I wasn't trying to be seen by people. I was trying to be the invisible person. So, because I'm not man, you know, I'm an angel. And then they used to making that mistake just because I'm in human form. They make a mistake and don't judge me like they would a man, but I'm here for the interest of humanity.
Would you like to play with Lionel Hampton? Once, I mean, or maybe more than once?
I'd be delighted. Benny Carter told me the next time I give 100-piece band concert, don't forget him.
I agree.
He wanted to be in it. So, you know, probably. So he was very thrilled about it. And so was Teddy Wilson, who I'd never met, but he was sitting in Russian, and he said, oh, that's Sun Ra. So he got up, stopped eating, and came and shook my hand. And he said, keep on doing what you're doing.
He knew about Angels and Demons at Play, Teddy Wilson.
He did?
He did.
He said something about it?
Yeah, he heard it.
Oh.
The album. He heard it on, he heard it.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of things.
That may have kindled his interest in you.
They started putting things together. They'd be surprised at the testimony I've given to the fact that a person in human form can do beautiful things.
You know, jazz still seems to be very important. I mean, the things that seem to... I mean, I'm excited because Sun Ra's here, and Sun Ra is an amazing figure to me. But the amazing figures, if we might draw some attention to them, you were Teddy Wilson, Coleman Hawkins, Stuff Smith, the figures... These legends, who you recognize as masters without having to read it in a book, are still important to you.
I got a picture of me and Earl Hines together, too.
And it's still important.
And one of the Nicholas brothers, too. He knew about it. A lot of things, you know. But I said, I'm more than what you call a musician. In fact, I'm thinking of just not calling myself a musician, calling myself a tone scientist or something else. Because I don't think musicians get proper respect in this country. So I realized, I went to Mexico, and the musician union blocked me from playing in this theater, although I was booked in the Hidalgo, I think the Hidalgo Theater. Advertised in the paper and everything. The government brought me there. The musician union stood up and fought against me. So then we were there 2 weeks trying to play, and finally I really got very angry about the situation where musicians blocking a musician, and I'm a master musician. So the Actors Union stepped in, and they said, well, Sun Ra is an actor, and it could play in our name. And we did. The Actors Union stepped in. So I found out I had to get more respect than musicians. So I don't think Dexter Gordon got no respect until he got the Tomato Picture.
Uh-huh. Well, he should have won the Academy Award, too.
The actors respected him. You see what I'm talking about?
Yes, they did.
But musicians have never gotten together and said, well, we're going to give something in honor of Dexter Gordon. The musicians in this country have never gotten together and honored somebody together or had a press party, anything. They never have done it. And yet, other sports and things do recognize the ones who are superior. And it's really time for musicians to respect
it's just our 116 hours of radioactivity, but it is our offering here from this station of respect for you.
Have called me utterly amazed, So maybe they'll wake up. I hope they do. They need to.
We're talking with Sun Ra live on the Sun Ra Festival. Phil Schaap here in Master Control with the entourage is still here, and I'm supposed to ask some questions for they would yell at me if I didn't ask you about the Batman record.
The Batman record. I did make the Batman record that became popular. I was playing organ on there. I don't even know what name they put on it, but I was playing the organ on this Batman record, the one that got famous. Mm-hmm. And I made it in New York under the auspices of Ed Bland, who came from Chicago, who made a movie there too about jazz. He made the first, but he was saying the movie jazz is dead, had that thing, but he was quite wrong, Mm-hmm. But I made the record. It was the first documentary of me in the band.
Spencer Weston has been with us and has, of course, been with you a lot. Is there anything we should ask Sun Ra?
Spencer is very interested in jazz, and he's done quite a bit for it in Philadelphia.
Anything we should ask Sun Ra before we play the new music that he brought to us this evening?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I think that WKCR and you, Phil Schaap, and all the support that you provided for Sun Ra's music is very critical and very important to the survival of music, and probably even more important than music, the survival of humanity itself, because as long as I've known Sun Ra, the things that he talks about are the things that he is. We often joke around, and Sun Ra has a little expression, he says, I talk that talk and walk that walk, and he certainly has been walking that walk, and I think that he's done, and you both have done a very comprehensive job in terms of exposing not only his music, but the deep philosophical and spiritual foundation from which it springs. And it just shows not the total dimension of Sun Ra, because I don't think any of us is capable of doing that. And as I've known him for a few years, and I know the small amount that I know about Sun Ra, I'm really thankful to have been in his presence and to learn the few things that I might have picked up. So I just like to say thank you to WKCR on behalf of Sun Ra and all those people that he's been associated with, and he's been responsible for bringing me into contact with. And perhaps we can hear some music now.
Okay, Sun Ra, you brought up a work of yours. You worked on it today in terms of editing it for this station's presentation of your music. All I know is that Pat Patrick brought a message from you on Thursday and said that it's special, that it's coming, and that it will be here before the festival is over. I see it over there on the tape machine, but you should tell us more about it.
About New York, I got about 9 volumes about New York and different places a village and different scenes in music and sound about the Washington Bridge, different things about New York. I got another song about New York that has, well, it'd probably be New York's theme song if they heard it. But I never did present it. It never been sung in public. But it's a very beautiful song about New York. And this is part of it. This here, which I call Manhattan Undertones, which is a short excerpt, sort of introduction thing to, you might call it a sound opera or music. It's a different sort of thing.
It's like a sound opera.
Yeah, I would say that's what it is.
Manhattan Undertones.
Right.
Part of the message from Pat Patrick is there are 9 volumes or 9?
9 volumes.
9 volumes. And this is a segment from just one volume.
Yeah.
So it's less than 1/9.
Oh, yeah. It's probably about 5 minutes. It's sort of like the introduction of an opera, like I said. It's sort of like that to paint the whole scene.
Is this a little bit of the overture, you mean?
Yeah, sort of. Mm-hmm.
Okay. This
given the main themes all in the begin that part. That's what the overture uses. It might give you a little excerpt for the end of the opera. What this is like that.
Well,
little melodic things from the whole thing.
I hope that our presenting here of Manhattan Undertones and our whole 116 hours of Sun Ra, 116 hours serves only as an overture to more listening, more presentations, and more communication from the Creator so we can hear even more.
But I got another piece on that. It's from a movie.
Well, we're going to hear it.
It's from the movie Space to Place. An excerpt they took out in Hollywood. I'm going to put it back in there where it belongs because it's a message to this planet. It's essential that they hear it,
Okay, we're going to hear now the edited tape from Sun Ra, delivered by Sun Ra today, featuring, among other things, elements that might be considered an overture from his 9-volume Manhattan Undertones. I'm Phil Schaap. I'd like to thank everybody involved. There have been over, I would say, 25 people who managed not to make too much noise in this room, and they're all people who have heard some portion of the message that we can learn from this man, Sun Ra, and this music, this personage.
I'm not really...
I know. I saved that for last because in this room 10 years ago, Taylor Storrs opened the mic and said, "What would you like to say, Sun Ra?" And you said, "I am not a man."
That's right. Because you know what the Bible says about a man? It said man is filthy and abominable. Man is appointed to die. It talks all kind of bad things about the thing called man. So I can be nothing like that. I'm not filthy and abominable, and I don't want no appointment with death. Man is like the beast that perishes. Why should I be something like that? I think they should get out of that name man and call themselves something else. They should call themselves a demon or anything but man, because that thing man is condemned from the day he's born. So therefore, I'm an angel, I'm an archangel now. And I'm going to keep on advancing to everything beyond the M-A-N, which I guess I don't even want to say it because it's so bad and so horrible that it just makes me shudder to think of M-A-N.